You're live.
Hey, hey. Hey, folks, we are live?
You sure are.
All right. Well, hey, Christian. Good to be here with you.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
I'm Marco Bucci. Hey. I guess I'll go ahead and introduce myself then. I'm Marco Bucci, and hey, I'm happy to be here on Proko. Thank you guys for coming in to check out the live stream. And as you can see, there is a code there somewhere on the bottom for 25% off my latest class. Happy to be on Proko presenting this class here. If you can, oh, right, you don't see my screen right now. On my screen is the thumbnail for the class, the Color Survival Guide. And there it is. Yeah, basically, as a teacher now for a long, long time, it's like my 12th year of art teaching. I know that people are really interested and also struggle a lot with color use. And for the first time, I've racked my brain for what are the core concepts that I use in them? And I arranged it into 6 chapters. And that's what this class is. It's about 4 hours long. And actually, I'm just putting the final touches on chapter 6. But yeah, today only 25% off the class at proko.com. So nice. That's cool. And I'm happy to be here today doing some painting.
Heck yeah. And Marco's an awesome teacher and an awesome artist. I highly recommend it.
Oh, thanks, Christian. I am looking forward to chatting with you about anything that comes across our feeds here in the chat. I can't see the chat, but I'm assuming you'll send me some questions.
Yeah, well, so I'll be answering questions from proko.com/535. So I'll be reading it directly from the website.
Cool. So what I've got going here is I was watching. You guys know the movie Parasite, that won the Oscar in 2019, I think it was. Director Bong Joon-ho. Well, that was the first movie I ever saw of his, and I loved Parasite so much. I started watching, his other catalog of movies, and this screenshot is from a movie called Memories of Murder, directed by Bong Joon-ho. And this is just a photograph of my TV as I was watching it. You can see the TV there. I was watching it with my wife, and I'm like, I saw this shot. I'm like, stop everything. That is an amazing shot. I just love the lighting on these 4 guys here, how it cascades down in darkness. Like it's the same light source on all of them, but each person gets a slightly different version of the light as the light fades off. You can tell there's a lamp right there near this dude's head. So I thought today, I've had this saved on my desktop for months now, been meaning to do a painting from it. And I thought, hey, what better chance to do that than on Proko stream?
Nice.
So let's do that.
Cool.
Feel free to interject anytime, Christian, with questions, or I know you're a serious question asker yourself, so hit me with something.
I'm the most serious question asker.
Yeah.
Probably the best question asker of all time.
That is your reputation. So I'm ready for you.
Well, I guess my personal first question is, how often are you studying stills for movies, and how do you think that helps you to become a better illustrator and artist?
I filter them into my studies maybe once a month, let's say. Generally, if I had to pick a number, it'd be around there. I like to do that because, and I know I'm going to get questions about. It's a very common question about burnout and stuff. One of the ways I avoid it is by studying like this, where the picture's there for me. It's a beautiful picture. I don't have to be creative here. Not that I'm copying it. I'm trying to learn from it. I will make my own artistic decisions here, but I feel like I'm just trying to download information into my brain, the information that's contained in this shot. And then in terms of my artistic inspiration, that'll be in my brain then for the next illustration I do. And oftentimes my recent studies actually come out in my illustrations. So I'm just trying to arrange my screen here. Usually I would have this on my other monitor, but you can't see my other monitor. So I'll just do this. I'll have to awkwardly that's good. I'll start with this guy here. And yeah, that's how it helps me be a better artist. It helps me both inspiration wise, as well as just getting different lighting scenarios in my head and stuff like that.
Right. Well, we were talking about this with Dom Lay yesterday, where it's important, I think, for students to have victories, little wins, and constantly having to be creative and make beautiful images from scratch can be something that does make you burn out, because it's hard to do that. And doing studies for movies is something that can, it gives you a roadmap for, something to make a cool looking image.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you do work for clients where like you really can't afford to fail there, because if you're hired by someone, the expectation is that you'll succeed, or else, you know, you probably won't get the job back or you won't get rehired. So I take the pressure off of that by doing my own personal work. And I guess, you know, I have no, like this picture might fail that I'm doing here. I definitely will probably have to go through, you know, the classic ugly phase and work through it and solve problems as I go. But this is the playground for me, is doing studies like this. I feel, you know, very liberated when I do this kind of stuff. And obviously I'm streaming in front of you guys today, but I'm going to try and treat it as if I were just alone in my studio, which of course I usually am.
Right.
Speaking of which, let me just throw a little tweet out there. Streaming live on Proko now. And
Nice.
Okay, I don't have the link, so maybe I won't do that.
Well, the link is proko.com/535, so people can.
Nice.
Yeah.
Proko.com/535.
Yeah.
Done. How's the weather out there?
It's amazing all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Except it rained yesterday, which I guess it's not good, but 90% good.
We usually pray for, well, this summer we've been praying for rain. I'm near Toronto, Toronto, Canada, in case anyone doesn't know. We're having a beautiful summer. It's been very hot and not so humid this summer, at least not where I live. Usually it is humid around here, but we need some rain, and I think we're in for a weekend of rain, so that's actually good.
That is good.
Let's see.
I don't know if I told you, I plan on driving around the country starting next Wednesday in my cargo van. I might end up near Toronto, and I will let you know.
Oh, yeah, let me know.
If I'm allowed.
I've got my COVID shots.
Yeah, I do too. But
nice, right? Let me know.
Yeah, will do.
So, yeah, do you live out of your van? Is that what I'm hearing, what I read?
Yeah, I live out of my van full time.
That's awesome, man. How does that work? Like, where do you park? I have no idea how this works.
So I live in parking lots and near the beach, depending on my mood. And then I will stay at friends' houses if I am in need of a couch or a shower to use.
That's great.
It's been way easier than you might think, you know, just finding a place to sleep. And it is slightly more uncomfortable than, you know, having a house and a bed that you know is going to be there. But it's been way easier than I imagined originally.
So is that a life choice that you made recently, or is it a goal you had, or how did that work out?
I've been doing it for about 3 months. I was living in New York City for that, and I'd always wanted to do it. So when I got back from New York, I thought, you know, I'm going to buy the van. Get it all set up.
How often do you get the van down by the river joke?
All the time. Also the sketchy van, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know that one.
Well, I have a white panel van, so it's like the generic sketchy van. So
Buffalo Bill van.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm hypersensitive to the joke stuff because my name is Marco, so you can imagine the joke I get all the time, Marco Polo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So let's. I will respect and avoid the van down by the river joke.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love this shot here, and I specifically love this guy that I'm painting here because the shapes are just so clear. I learned this little trick from Tiffany Mang, who I think has got a Proko video coming out. She's a great painter. If you want to have Photoshop simplify this for you, I'm sure you guys know like the whole squint your eyes thing. Just half cover your eyes. You can see it in my webcam here, like this kind of thing. If you want Photoshop to do that, just go to Filter, Noise, Median, and Photoshop will give you this kind of simplified view. And so for those of you if you ever having trouble simplifying and seeing shapes, just do this. In fact, hey, for the purposes of this, I will throw this on a filter right now and paint from here. And then if I need to see more detail, I can always undo that. In fact, sometimes I'll just throw that on a layer like this. And there we go. Now it's on a layer. It's a very subtle change, but it helps with, just seeing simplified shapes.
Right.
And I'm painting without a drawing, like I'm drawing as I'm painting. So I'm kind of figuring out proportions as I go. And I love doing this because it allows for a very spontaneous feel to the work. Like I can easily just make his head longer or wider or adjust where the nose goes in proportions because I'm kind of sketching and painting at the same time. which is a process that took me a while to get used to, but it really works for the way I like to. It's the same way I think. I kind of think in rough. It's weird. Like I think in very rough passages, and then I kind of refine as I go. I don't like doing a refined drawing first, although that is very possible to do that. But I'm kind of fostering this thing where I'm building it as I go, and I like seeing the painting evolve on the canvas, because that inspires me to keep working on it when I'm feeling like every stage is a revelation in the painting.
Right.
I like doing that. Mostly working with the round brush here. I laid in some texture with these weird halftone brush, weird in a good way, halftone brushes that I got from Kyle Webster's halftone kit. Kyle Webster, famous Photoshop brush creator, awesome brushes, and those textures are from his halftone kit. There's a ton of them. Like, see all these brushes here, and this tool I'm using is called Brushbox, which is a Photoshop plugin that I think just displays brushes in a really nice way. Ooh, look at that. Let's do that. Watch this. Layer, boom, wait, boom. Turn the opacity down. And let's use that.
Nice.
Yeah. Just, stuff that
experimenting.
Let's see what happens. This is a big experiment. By the way, I don't think I'll be able to finish this entire picture in the roughly 2 hours we have together. I'll get as far as I can, and maybe I'll finish it, and then I'll post it on my Instagram or something, and those of you who are watching this can see the final, a few days later or something.
Right.
I'll get as far as I can.
Well, when you're doing your client work, would you say that you're experimenting in this way all the time? Even in a professional setting.
Yeah, I have. I guess trained myself to not be afraid of doing this kind of thing. So when I do client work, depending on the job, sometimes clients really want a sketch to approve first, and that's fine. I will do that. I'll if I'm working for, like, I was doing a HarperCollins book cover, and they had a serious approval process, right? So I had to make sure I did a good sketch, and like the art director approved it. And then I can't work like this. But if I'm doing, other stuff that's maybe more conceptual, I absolutely do work this way. And I will show clients the image as it progresses. Like, I can already see a head here, obviously. So if I were doing this for a client, I might take this another half hour and then show it to them and say, hey, hopefully you can see what I'm getting at here. Do you like the way this is going, or do you not like it? And then I can adjust from there. But yeah, I have a few different ways that I work, a few different processes that I can tailor to the job that I'm actually doing. I'm going to flatten my layers because I want my multiply brush to be able to work over the whole picture. And when I had them on a layer, I couldn't do that. So just one layer here.
Nice. Let me find a question from the chat to ask you.
Yeah, please. I don't shut up, so you gotta tell me.
Yeah. There are a lot of questions, so I don't think even if we tried, we couldn't get through all of them.
Okay, well, let's go.
Tony says, hey, Marco, when working from reference, I sometimes want to adjust the lighting to better suit the feeling of the piece or draw attention to a specific area, but I worry that getting creative with the lighting will break its consistency. Can you talk a little bit about how you decide to make those creative choices and how to avoid breaking the illusion of realistic light sources? Thanks.
Tony? Hey, Tony. Yeah, good question. So typically, if I'm working from a reference like this one, I've kind of handpicked it because I already like it. So I generally won't change the lighting. Like, for me, again, I don't know if this answers your question, but for me, the time to change the lighting is not when you're studying from the reference, but it's when you're doing your own work that is a product of the reference. So like, if I want to use this lighting in an illustration later on of my own making, then I'll change it. But here, I want to know like how this shot is made. So I'm actually actively not doing that. But if you wanted to do it, and let's say you wanted to have more of a side light on this guy, you can always, like, say, make a new layer, throw it on multiply mode, and let's say you wanted, if it's a side light, maybe more of this guy's going to be in shadow. So you just paint right on the reference and see if you can alter the lighting so that it's a side light. Maybe the whole top of the forehead will be in shadow. Let me do another layer that's just on normal mode, and I'll just adjust the lighting like on the reference itself. And I've done this, like if I have a piece of reference I'm looking at and I'm wanting to test its limits in terms of what is possible with different lighting scenarios, I'll just paint it on the reference like this and alter it this way, and then maybe do a study from there and say, okay, now this is looking a bit more like a the light is coming more obliquely from the side, maybe, in which case this whole part of the cheek plane would be lit up, the side of the chin, and I'll make these adjustments like this on the actual reference. But the study, especially in today's case, I'm essentially using what's there.
Right.
Hopefully that makes sense.
That was a good answer.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the answer, it always, depends on the person's goals. Is it a study to learn lighting, or is it, to use it as a base for an illustration or concept? Or
yeah. Christian, I answer the questions. That was a joke.
Sorry.
That was totally a joke. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself.
I'll try my best to never answer again. You've destroyed my confidence. So.
Again, that was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else we got?
Andrew Rose asks.
Hey, Andrew.
Hi, Marco. How do you personally balance study and creating original work? Do you feel that one takes priority, and how has that changed throughout your career? If you're doing a master's study, do you study multiple artists simultaneously, or focus for weeks or months on an individual before moving on? Looking forward to the stream, and thank you for your guidance. Kind regards, Andrew.
Hey, Andrew. Happy to have you here. Let me repeat some advice I got from an artist once. A real awesome artist whose work I love. His name is Mark Beam. His last name is Behm, and he's an active artist. He's a concept guy. He was at Valve. He was an animator before that. And I asked him a very similar question, like 15 years ago now. It's been a while. He said to me that what your imagination pieces do, at least when you're starting out, is they reveal your weaknesses, because when you do a piece from imagination, you'll have both successes and failures based on your knowledge base, right? So your job with an imagination painting is to do it and then evaluate where it succeeds and where it fails. And where it fails, that's where you then go back to your studies from reference, be it life or photo or textbooks, if it's anatomy or something, and shore up where you failed and fix those things. And then once you feel like you've got that, try another one from imagination where you tackle a very similar subject matter. And then, and watch the improvement, and then rinse and repeat. It's not a one-time process. You'll probably do that 100 times over. Yeah, so that's what I do. Now, that was the first part of the question, Christian. Can you remind me what the second part was?
Yes. Let's see. If you're doing a master's study, do you study multiple artists simultaneously, or focus for weeks or months on an individual before moving on?
I have never really focused on an individual. I will study different artists simultaneously based on what I'm going for. Then again, in my past, I have been obsessed with certain artists. Like, I think everyone's obsessed with Sargent at some point in their life, and I certainly went through that. And I mean, I'm still obsessed with Sargent, but there was a time when I would just be doing Sargent studies all day, every day. And I have them actually in oils, and I have them floating around my basement right now. But I was never specific about only studying from one artist at a time. I would take the inspiration and information from wherever I could get it based on what I feel like I was working on. So if I'm working on lighting, I would study Sargent, say, and who knows, anyone I can get my hands on that I like. Norman Rockwell, even though they don't paint the same, light is light, right? So regardless of a painter's style, how they capture light, if you're studying light, you don't necessarily need to study a particular style. You can get it from different artists. What do you think about that one, Christian? I feel like I want to remind you that I do want you to weigh in on this stuff.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Okay. Again, it really depends on your goals. It's I know plenty of artists who spend, months on a single highly rendered Sargent study, or on a single master study, and other people who just are essentially just doing composition studies of famous paintings. And if you would like to be a concept artist, maybe doing something that's a little bit sketchier and just trying to get the impression of it is more useful than doing a highly rendered thing. Whereas if you want to be an illustrator for Magic the Gathering, for example, learning the rendering of Sargent or Velasquez or other Magic the Gathering artists, that's probably something useful to do.
Yeah, I just did a bunch of cards for Magic the Gathering, and definitely rendering is one of the big skills you use there. So I feel like one of the things you want to know when you're studying is like, what exactly is the information you want? If you are copying from another artist, which is great, what you're trying to do there is mimic their style. However, you can paint from a Sargent or whoever and not necessarily need to copy what their painting looks like, yet you just want to capture the, like, say how Sargent is so good with halftones or subtly turning form. You don't need to necessarily mimic his brushwork to capture that information. So I feel like Richard Schmid said this, when you're studying, you almost feel more like a trapper, like a nature trapper. You're trapping a certain kind of information, and you should be very specific about what that information is. For example, like, you could do a study of this guy's face where I really love, see this little, okay, he's lit from the side, but you see how on this side of the face, there's still light there, but it's so much darker than on this side. You could do a study where you're just trying to capture that, right? And you don't necessarily, and if you're going to do that, then who cares about his likeness, for example? Throw that away. That's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm capturing somewhat of a likeness, but that's really not my goal. So you should be hyper aware of what information it is you're trying to get. For me, I love the lighting. I'm trying to get the different lighting on these people's faces. And I know I have a couple hours, so I'll spend maybe half hour on this guy, then I'll move on. But yeah, knowing what the information is you're trying to get, which changes like per study, I feel like, is really, really essential.
Right. Well, and it seems like the advice that I've gotten from most of like artists that I've looked up to, like Scott Flanders, the concept artist that is doing stuff in Proko now. The thing that he told me that really helped me was to always be aware of your intentions with what you're painting and drawing.
Yeah.
Always it's more important to write down, like spend 30 minutes just writing down what you want to get out of doing an image, or, your goals with it, or exactly what you want to do. And that 30 minutes of planning might, allow you to get, 2 more hours of painting done more efficiently because you're not figuring out what you're painting while you're painting it. Yeah,
exactly. And I think the writing things down is always a good idea. I used to do this a lot. I wish I did it more. I should do this again. I used to keep a little notebook just handy on my desk, and I would just write things down like that. For some reason, I've abandoned that, but I think that's a bad thing. I should get it back. And, in time, you maybe don't necessarily need the notes. You just know in your head, like you look at something and the fundamentals, like you think in terms of the fundamentals of painting over time, and you're able to understand instantly what captures you about a certain thing, which is another skill that like is kind of adjacent to art. Like I feel like a lot of people with art skill, they think about, drawing shapes and forms and perspective and light and shadow and rendering. And certainly those are all art skills. But another skill that's a little more abstract is understanding what it is that captures you about a certain picture, like why you like it. Or if you're just walking around in real life, what it is that makes something appear beautiful to you. And it's kind of a lesser talked about skill, but it is a skill. Like you need to know, you have to have a feeling like, oh, if I can just capture this, that will help the picture feel beautiful. One of the studies I do a lot, and I would say this is on the harder end of the spectrum, is take a walk in real life, go outside to wherever you live, and to a place that you like a park or something, whatever you like, and no sketchbook, nothing like that. Just find a scene that appeals to you. Look at it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Give yourself the time you need, and or write it down in a notebook or make mental notes as to what it is about that scene. Don't draw it, don't paint it, just make notes. And go home then and paint it from your imagination. Don't take a picture of it. Go home and remember and use your notes as to what it is that made that scene special. It's a very difficult exercise. Chances of failure are high, and I've failed many times at this. But it's really, really helps me when I can get it. And it kind of lends a legitimacy to the trust you have in your own vision. If you can get it, you're like, oh, what I thought was there, that actually was what was there. And if you can pull that out of your own brain, it's immensely satisfying and really good for your studies. Give that a shot if you guys haven't tried that one yet.
Well, it was strange for me. I went to the Watts Atelier in Encinitas, and it would be strange to me to watch the teachers, Ben Young and Eric Gist, do a drawing from the same exact model at the same exact time using the same exact materials, but their drawings would look entirely different. And And I think the importance of that is like, you know, when you and somebody else might look at a John Singer Sargent painting or any reference landscape or portrait or figure or whatever, and you will value different things, so your images will be different. And ultimately, I think that's what makes you a person, a unique artist that can contribute something, is their opinions on what is more important than other things.
Exactly. And that is something that can only really be cultivated over time and experience. Like, there's so many things that can contribute to what you find valuable about a picture. It's like, it's very hard to explain, but it's like, I'm looking at like this, like something as simple as like, I'm looking at the temple of this guy's head. So like the temple, you know, being this area here. And I'm like, you know what? I bet you I can capture that in one brushstroke. And if I did that, if I'm successful there, that would lend so much solidity to that plane. That's a very like specific thing, right? But the more you paint, the more you will think in terms of like the tools of the trade. Like a non-artist would never have that thought because they don't know about the temple plane and brushstrokes. But me or you, will look at that and say, if I can capture that temple plane in like one brushstroke, like that's the statement I just made there might be a little stronger. And that will happen a million times throughout a picture. Like when I'm painting something, I'm actually a slower painter today than I was 10 years ago, because 10 years ago, I didn't have all these opinions. I was still forming them. And now, like, I feel like a painting now has to jump so many hurdles for me to like it. And it makes me a slower artist, which is one of my personal things I'm dealing with right now. Like sometimes I don't have the time to indulge that luxury, but that's kind of the path I've been finding to be true. And it relates to, you know, what you're talking about, Christian, with different teachers coming out with different things based on the same study.
Well, and there are a couple things to say about that. Is like, I know that John Singer Sargent would spend, you know, dozens and dozens of hours making his paintings look effortless, you know?
Yeah.
Like when you look at them in person, they look like, oh, that arm is described with a single brushstroke, you know, or those hands are just like this abstract shape, but when you zoom out, they're these beautiful hands that read exactly like hands. And, you know, but I think he was notorious for being somewhat of a slow painter, you know, even though his paintings look exactly the opposite. And I know that Jeremy Lipking, his paintings, I love his paintings a lot, but if you ever watch him paint, he's
molasses,
incredibly meticulous painter, because he's only doing he's only doing the correct brushstroke, you know. It's like one correct decision after another, but it's incredibly slow.
I have one of his DVDs, and I saw him paint in Dana Point, California in 2010 at one of those master's workshops.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, he's like slow, but I don't mean that in a disparaging way at all. He's very meticulous and direct and exact. It feels like he's never taken a backward step, which is something that I think is valuable. This gets us into the topic of speed and how artists can work. Should you work quickly or not? And I find that speed is only something that comes with time. Like you should only work as fast as your precision will allow. And I think I ripped that off of Richard Schmid. I think Richard Schmid said that. That's how fast you should work. However fast you can make precise, controlled decisions that are accurate. If you can do that quickly, then do it quickly. And that'll increase over time. Your speed will increase over time because it has to, right? When your knowledge increases, your ability to execute gets sharper, and that just makes everything faster. But focusing on speed too early is a huge detriment, and you should not do that.
Right. Well, I feel like that's what artists are trained. You know, people will study anatomy or perspective academically for years to be able to forget it, you know, to be able for that to be intuitive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that takes a long time, man. Like I'm not that I'm there. I still, like when I'm doing anything anatomical, I still have to be like, okay, where do the lats go? Like, how do they fit into the neck? And, you know, that's where Proko, his channel has been great for me, because anatomy has never been one of my strong suits. I've only become more interested in it in the past like 5 years or so. But I always have to slow down there. But when it comes to, say, brushwork, I've been practicing brushwork for years and years. It happens very quickly for me. As you probably can see me painting this, I'm not really thinking too much about it. It's just coming out. And the shapes, like I'm always looking at shapes, which is another thing that has become very natural to me. Like you know, when I say shapes, what is the shadow shape of this eye? You know, it's like, it's this, see this shape I'm carving out, that's a shadow shape. And you can see it in my painting, right? That shape is there. I could probably be more clear about it, but I want to move on because I don't, that shape is less important to me than moving on right now. But, you know, I can't remember where this started, but yeah.
Something about anatomy and correct decisions, and
something about a van down by the river. Damn it. Yeah. I said I wouldn't say that.
That's only the 100,000th time somebody's made that joke.
The very first time anyone has ever made that joke.
Yeah. I made that joke when I posted about it on my Instagram. So
yeah,
I'm inviting the van.
All right, sorry. You get one Marco Polo joke.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Use it whenever you want.
I'm going to use it years from now.
Yeah.
So, when you least expect it. It's going to be painful.
At my funeral, show up. Marco Polo, a drive-by.
Yeah. And then that's when you reveal that you faked your death and you respond Polo.
Yeah, and we start a big feud, a worldwide cross-country feud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hit me with another question if there are there.
There are many questions.
Ah, cool.
Joe says, "Hi, Marco. I think one of the strengths of your videos is a clear enunciation that facilitates the comprehension of your content. Did you ever take any courses? Did you ever take any courses to talk like a radio host? And what skills outside of art do you think artists can learn to make their lives easier as professionals?"
Great question. Thanks, Joe. No classes, but I've always been into public speaking, and like back in school, you know, you did speeches and stuff. I would always be interested in that, and I think for some reason I have circumvented the problem. Like a lot of people's biggest fear is public speaking. I've always loved it. I can't explain it, but I've always loved it, and I feel like I immensely value good communication. Now I'm live right now, so I will stutter. I'm not perfect. I'll stutter. There you go. I'll stutter over my words all the time. But when I record, everything has to be exact. And I'm very conscious of pronouncing syllables and spacing out words enough that they have some breathing room, yet they're still condensed enough to be entertaining and like fast paced, but still understandable. I feel like I've put a lot of time into finding that balance. In fact, like all you got to do is go to my earlier videos on my YouTube channel, and like I don't have that. It's not there yet. I hadn't discovered it, and I also really like listening to other people speak and see, you know, especially good speakers, and seeing how they do it and how they pronounce words and what words they use, and maybe there's a way to condense a thought from 3 sentences down to 1 sentence. And I really think that's a valuable thing. It's like simplifying shapes in a painting. So yeah, I really enjoy listening to other people speak who are also good at it. Audiobook readers tend to be quite good in general. That's why they get hired. Stuff like that. And what was the second part of the question?
What skills outside of art do you think artists can learn to make their lives easier as professionals?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think that relates to kind of what I was saying, like the whole thing about curating the ideas in your head. Like, you know, we all are full of ideas floating around in our brains. How can you best communicate them? Like when you go to paint them or write them, I think writing is actually the quickest way of expression, or maybe speaking, but writing is better, I think, because you can edit your writing. Whereas when you speak, you have to backtrack, but with writing, just cross it out and edit it. I would practice like putting down your thoughts on paper or on a whiteboard and seeing if you actually do understand concretely the ideas in your head by putting them tangibly onto some medium, like a whiteboard or a piece of paper. Painting then is next. Like painting is slow. This is a very slow way of expressing ideas. It takes me, I got to render this stuff out. But writing is very quick. So again, getting back to my whole notebook thing, I used to keep a notebook and I would just put ideas down. And then the nice thing about having your ideas down is that you can edit them, like I said. And that is a huge skill, like organizing the thoughts in your head. Writing, songwriting. If any of you are musical, try songwriting. That's a great way of condensing ideas because you have to turn it into like poetry almost. If people here are not musicians, try just writing in a journal or try writing a poem, try condensing your thoughts down.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, art is just it's just a visual way of communication. It's the same, the point of art is to communicate ideas. So, you can study all the academics. The way I see studying academic perspective and anatomy and all that kind of stuff is like the same reason people would want to learn punctuation. It's like learning what an independent clause is, or learning the actual technical parts of how to talk. But there's the other side of what do you actually, what do you say, with learning correct punctuation and all that kind of stuff. I think that's an equally as important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How do you say it? And then what do you say? I feel like studying, it's two different things. Like you said, Christian, knowing how to say something is like kind of the first step. That feels like studying artistic fundamentals, like perspective, like knowing how to say perspective in visual language. But then what do you say with it? That's actually the harder part, because then that involves, looking inside yourself and seeing what ideas you have that are worth telling the world,
Right. Well, I think that a lot of students might get caught up on the, how do I say it versus what do I say? And I think, actually, I think most people are good enough at least drawing to be able to communicate their ideas well enough to, at least be successful at communicating their ideas. And I think at any stage, a student should be doing projects and practicing communicating, essentially, what they want to be doing with their art.
Yeah, I run a private mentorship program where I only take on 10 students, and it's like hyper focused for 8 weeks. And in some of those weeks, we do our own illustrations, and I do one of my own, and the students do them. And like you said, like I take on like intermediate to advanced students, and in this mentorship, and I find the hardest thing with critiquing is like you said, Christian, a lot of them, everyone, actually all of them, will be able to put forth a picture, a readable picture. But my job is like, okay, how can you say that picture in the best possible way? And that's a very hard challenge for me as a teacher to help the student with, because everyone's got their own personal method, right? I can't just impose how I would do it. But what I can do is say, hey, it looks like you have a few thoughts here that are conflicting, or maybe that are adding too much noise. How about if you condense this down to like one thing? I think I would still say the same thing, but in a clearer way, that kind of thing. Right. That's what turns someone into a pro, really. I agree with you, Christian, that a lot of people will have the fundamental skills that are necessary to say something visually, but then it's like the much harder part is what is the best way to say it? And it involves editing. Like editing is what we do as painters, or what a good writer does. Like you have all these thoughts in your head, you have to filter them through a very logical editing system. And to do that, you have to know what works and what doesn't in different contexts. And that will only happen with time. No one is born a sergeant. And I'm sure not even Sargent was born a sergeant, outside of literal name value. But yeah.
Well, and I think that's what art is your opinions on things. It's always going to be hard to communicate ideas. And I remember, I'm not going to bash the quality of these drawings, but I don't think they're as pretty as somebody might suspect. It's the character design stuff for Lord of the Rings, like the original Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Like they're not necessarily beautiful drawings like you'd see on ArtStation. They look, the drawing quality looks like somebody was just doing a character sketch, to get the idea across of a particular costume or something. And I think a lot of people overestimate the skills required to become professional, in terms of the technical ability,
I agree.
You'd be surprised on, how, I guess not bad, but how simple the draftsmanship can be, even for working on, big blockbuster movies or big video games or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I guess to counter, to go the other side of that coin would be, I guess the only way to arrive at something that simple is to know what you're editing away. Right. So in a way, when I look at, and I totally agree with you, Christian, in a way, when I look at those sketches you're talking about, or like, you know, a Pixar art of book, which often do have very sketchy and simple character designs, I'm like, okay, on the surface, they're so simple and loose and rough, and it feels like it could be more, but the beauty is like what's not there. You know, I feel like that Simpsons quote where remember Lisa's like, the beauty is in the notes he's not playing, and the guy's like, I could listen to that at home. Yeah, but it's true. It's like what's not there is just as considered as what is there, and that's what a good artist does. If you don't know what you're editing out, then chances are you're going to get it wrong. You'll edit things away that are essential, maybe, or you will add things that are not essential, and therefore your drawing just looks rickety and it feels like it's not stable. But if you know what you're getting rid of, then you can do all, like, that's a superpower with art. You can do all kinds of stuff. And like you said, I like your thing earlier, Christian, art is your opinion on things. And like, that's what you're doing. You are editing and you're taking away the non-essential. Like, for example, I'm doing it right now. Like his upper eyelid there, I want, like, can I do that in one shape? Like, can I go like that? And that's his upper eyelid. I don't like that stroke. So let me try again. Thank God for undo, right? There we go. I think that would work. And it's like, there's a lot of anatomy there that I just did in one stroke. There's like 3 different planes that I just put down in one stroke, but I'm aware of what is happening, and then I can adjust from there. Xiaoming Wu, amazing painter, had this great scathing quote. He's like, in the hands of a good painter, a single brushstroke can mean so much, but in the hands of an amateur, 10 brushstrokes means nothing. Yeah. And it's a very blunt statement, right? But I love it. I just love how blunt it is, and it's so true. And that's really what I strive for, is to just pack every stroke with some kind of meaning. And that meaning could be drawing, it could be lighting, it could be textural, it could be emotional. One, I guess, pet peeve I have is when people suggest that every stroke you put down should be a physical representation of what's there. It's like, no, it can be. But how about if I want something more emotional and I want the cheekbone to be painted in like one brushstroke, like I keep saying? That to me is not necessarily a physical attempt at replicating reality. It's an attempt at replicating the emotion I feel when I look at that photo. And that to me is just as legitimate. Like, you know, why shouldn't that be equally as legitimate as what's physically there? After all, since when is nature the boss, right? We react to things as emotional creatures, and that's what art needs. In my opinion, that's what art needs to capture. Right. I highly value technical skill. You need it. And we've been talking about this thematically the whole way, I think. But like you said again, I mean, you should just be doing this live chat. Like you said again, at some point you need to throw it away, or maybe not throw it away, but put it at the back of your brain and let your personality come to the forefront.
Right. And have confidence that, you know, if you've studied fundamentals for 4 years, you know, have confidence that you know your fundamentals. You know, there's always going to be somebody who's better at the fundamentals of art than you, you know, but there's no one who can be better at being you than you. It sounds corny, but I think it's absolutely true. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I totally agree. So, you know, one of my personal goals in art is to, like, if I ever see someone who's like just really leaps and bounds ahead of me in a certain fundamental, I kind of get like competitive. I'm like, I should be able to do that. Like, I can learn that. It was most recently it was anatomy. And I'm like, I was more interested in correct anatomical stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I don't know how the forearm works. The forearm's very complex. But I know I can learn it. So like, I think that's where I found Proko's videos, is when he first posted that forearm lesson. Was like 2015 or something. It was, a few years ago, but fairly recently. And I feel that way. And then I try and learn as much as I can. And I do that with like 3D as well. I'm like kind of a 3D hobbyist. And I guess I just feel the need to like have the technical stuff so that when I go to make art, I feel like I'm informed by it. Yeah.
Just a tool to help you.
Yeah. These shadows are connected on his face and I'm not connecting them. I got to fix that. See this? It's connected. It's all one shape. Like, it goes from the nose into the mouth, down onto the lower plane of the mouth here, and onto the chin. Just one beautiful shape. And there's nothing in the shadow. Look at that. There's nothing there. So I'll make sure it's masked in. There we go. His mouth is too low, so I got to fix that. This internal dialogue that I'm trying to narrate here.
Yeah. Never
All right,
stop.
Hit me with another one.
Cool. Sevmir asks, hello, Marco. When did you have your first aha moment when it came to using color and generally painting? I'd love to hear when this was and how it happened. Thanks for the stream.
2004, I was painting, didn't know how to paint. I was afraid of color. And I had some drawing fundamentals. I started drawing before I started painting. And I was painting snow. And snow is friendly to painters because it's pure, it's a white local color. So it gets all of its color from its surroundings. And I remember seeing the shadows of the snow were blue. And I'm like, wow, I never really noticed that. I've been seeing snow all my life. I live in Canada. I see a lot of snow. I never really noticed that the shadows were blue. And then I'm like, wait a second, they're blue because the sky is shining light on them in the shadow. And then I was like, but then why isn't that blue in the light? And then I realized, probably over the course of several days, I realized, oh, the sun is so strong that it's eliminating the blue sky from the light, but that blue sky is available to the shadows. And that was my first big aha moment. I was able to paint snow in light and shadow. And I'm like, wow, there are families of color. And that was my first big aha moment. I think 2004, because I think I started painting in like 2003. And, I was terrible. It took me a while to make some discoveries.
Right. Are you constantly having aha moments?
Yes, but less in terms of like fundamentals like that. Not that I'm perfect with the fundamentals, but like at this point, the fundamentals are not mysterious anymore. Like, sure, I could always get better at perspective or anatomy, but like there's no more ahas recently. It's like, oh, that's how the biceps connect. Okay, I can plug that in. The aha moments now are more in terms of like unexpected color mixtures, like this green, like what does this turquoise green look like if I put it in a multiply mode? And this could be an aha moment. Little minor things like that are specific to like piece by piece. I may experiment with different color palettes, and that can be its own aha moment.
Right.
The other aha moment that I absolutely love is when disciplines cross, like the lessons from different disciplines cross over. Like I'm a hobbyist woodworker, and I just love it when I can apply things I've learned in painting to woodworking. And I can't really give you an example off the top of my head, but there are certain things where I'm like, oh, if I think about it this way, like I do in art, I can do this with woodworking. And that happens. And I love, like, those are my favorite aha moments.
Right. Yeah. For me, I kind of have similar things where I kind of realize that a lot of things about studying art are similar to, lifting weights or running or a lot of exercise stuff or playing the guitar or anything really. It's
you play guitar?
No, I don't. I bought a guitar at Goodwill for $20 a few days ago. So I'm going to give it a shot. But
I learned to play guitar in when I was, I think it was 14 years old. Whenever Nirvana's, what's it called? Unplugged in New York came out.
nice.
That summer, I borrowed a guitar from my school that I went to over the summer, and I bought a tab book, and I learned how to play the songs on that album. It's one of the best summers of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it.
That was great. I could play like "Come As You Are" on the guitar. I felt amazing.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest songs ever written.
I love that song. I couldn't play it well.
Yeah.
You want to hear a funny story about that?
Part of Nirvana. I think that's part of learning to play Nirvana is not playing it well.
Yeah. You want to hear a funny story about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was so high on myself when I was learning that stuff. I recorded me playing, I think it was In Bloom, on the guitar, on the acoustic guitar. I recorded it on tape, and I brought it to my school. Like I was in grade 7 or something, or as you Americans say, 7th grade. I brought it to my school, and I went to my friend. I'm like, hey, check out this. This is Kurt Cobain playing "Come As You Are," but just the guitar. Like it was me though, right? It was me playing. So I played the tape of me playing "Come As You Are," telling him it was Kurt Cobain playing, and he listened to it. He's like, wow, Kurt Cobain isn't really that good. Yeah, it was hilarious. I'm like, oh, well, that backfired.
Well, I mean, I've seen interviews with him where he would be talking about how he knows almost no technical guitar stuff.
Yeah.
Almost no technical musical stuff. And it's not like he was a musical genius in terms of like a protege or anything. He was like just like doing it for fun, and just through the fact of him figuring stuff out on his own, he became this brilliant musician.
Yeah, music is really interesting because unlike art, where if you don't know how to draw, like if you don't know form and like the planes of the head, like there is no chance you're going to be able to get that right. It's just not going to happen. It's going to look like a kid drew it. But with music, you can actually get away with more of the intuition thing from the start. Like if you learn a few chords and you have a good ear, you can. Like there are people who don't know scales and don't know, and they're good. And Kurt Cobain might have been one of them. But even the best musicians, a lot of them will talk about this. In fact, there's a great talk by John Mayer. Now, whatever you think of John Mayer's music, throw that out the window for a second. There's a talk he did at what's the school in Boston? Is it Berkeley? It's where he went to school. It's on YouTube. Search like John Mayer Berkeley talk. It's from like 10 years ago or something. And he talks about how for him, music started out technical, but has become just a language of shapes and chord progressions and like, how the emotions of the chords make you feel, and or how the chords stimulate emotions in you. And it's really adjacent to art and very related, even though it's a completely different discipline. And it's really cool to hear how musicians talk about this stuff, because I feel like in that world, the debate rages on there too, whether you should be technical or not. And I think John Mayer, again, despite what you may think of his music, had some really good things to say. You can find it on YouTube.
Right. Yeah. I think it's the same thing with Dave Grohl. He, obviously was in Nirvana, and he would say that they would just like, they bought instruments as like 13-year-old kids, and they, his own words, they were like just complete garbage together. They would be bad at music, but enjoy every second of it, And
yeah, no, that's cool.
And then there's the other side of people, it's famous guitar players having guitar teachers their entire careers,
Right. I mean, yeah, we're entering into a territory where it's there's no concrete answers. Like anyone who thinks there is an answer, it's just not the case. There can be answers for you and for me, but there's no answer. There's no one size fits all. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I think it always comes back to your opinions, So.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a big fan of it sounds strange, but Post Malone, like,
is that like, yeah.
Yeah, the rapper, but like Post Malone, he learned to love guitar playing Guitar Hero.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's how he became interested in music, and he got really good at Guitar Hero to the point where he started making his own stuff, and eventually released, White Iverson on SoundCloud, and then that blew up, and it has made his career, and he's become incredibly successful at that. But that's from Guitar Hero,
Wow, that's a cool story.
Yeah,
that's like I'm a big combat sports fan, mixed martial arts specifically, and anyone who's into MMA will know John Jones. He talks about learning fight moves from YouTube back like 10 years ago when he first started, and like John Jones is one of the best fighters the sport has ever seen. And the dude is like sitting there on YouTube learning stuff, and he's able to plug it in. Right. It's YouTube has really changed the world. Seriously,
really strange. Well, I remember
changed my career. I know that.
Yeah. I think it's one of the most significant breakthroughs in communicating ideas in the past 200 years. I think. Yeah,
like everything is on YouTube. Like you want to fix your faucet in your kitchen, it's on YouTube. I learned. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was talking to Marshall Vandriff about this, where, in the past, the path to you becoming, having the ability to release your stuff to the public was having an art director at the Saturday Evening Post that would agree to put your illustrations on the front of the Saturday Evening Post, which only like Leyendecker and Rockwell were doing that. And then maybe a few other artists, but it's like now the barrier of entry to putting your stuff online is like your cell phone. You know, it's like there are plenty of people that have become massively successful YouTubers just posting, you know, the tools from their iPhone, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I went to film school. I didn't go to art school. I went to film school, and I went there from 2001 to 2005. And, you know, in those years, cell phones were just kind of becoming the norm, but there certainly were no smartphones, and no one's making films on their phone at all. So when I went to film school, we learned like camera operation on like, we started with like literally 8mm hand wound film cameras, like Charlie Chaplin stuff. And we then went on to like DV cams and stuff like that. And now I'm just sometimes reflect on what students must be doing in film school now. It's like everyone has a film studio in their pocket with the iPhone or whatever phone you have. It's just amazing how accessible such powerful tools are that would have been totally inaccessible to you 10 years ago or 20 years ago is now in your pocket for the most part, including painting tools like Photoshop here, or if you have Procreate or whatever tool you have on your iPad or iPhone, whatever. It's just incredible. And I guess in a weird way, I kind of feel lucky that I started, like I was young. I'm 38 years old now, so I'm still young by some standards, but I was a young kid in like the late 90s and early 2000s. And I feel like I benefited from not having all those tools, because I feel like I would have been overwhelmed just knowing my personality. Like even today, I'm like, oh, I want to learn some 3D stuff. Oh, I want to learn some visual effects stuff. Oh, I want to paint. Oh, I want to go do this. And like, I feel like I'm lucky that I didn't have all those temptations when I was first learning art. I was able to focus more, which if I started today, that would be a challenge for me.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for everybody. I mean, there's the stuff that you want to learn, and then there's the distractions. There's video games and, you know, movies and you know, YouTube and like pretty much everything that you could ever be doing is.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's strange because I don't know. The thing I've been thinking about a lot recently is in the past, you know, in the 1400s, the only way to become a professional artist was to be an apprentice to a great master, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way you can get access to the information. But now it's like the only thing limiting people from getting the access to the information is their internet connection and their motivation to train. Exactly.
Which comes with its own drawbacks as well. Like it's difficult. You would now have to have the responsibility of sifting through it. And it's like, you know, that Mickey Mouse, where when Mickey Mouse gets access to the Sorcerer's Apprentice, where he gets access to the walking broomsticks and he has no idea how to control them. That can be the case with like the wealth of information on the internet. It's like suddenly you are in control of the curation of it. And it's like, good luck. There's a million videos on there about perspective. How do you know which one you need? That's tough. Like that's a challenge that didn't exist before. Before it's like you found a teacher and like that was your guy. That was your teacher, you know? Now it's like, yeah, it's like everyone can have every teacher, and which is, you know, I guess for my own students, I try my best to create in my classes. I try and create like an environment where we tackle things systematically, and I try and deliver it. I try to make my own little universe of teaching where like everything in my teaching universe is related to each other, and it's like that on my YouTube channel too. And I try and hyper focus on that in my mentorships, where it's like, I'll teach you the way I learn shapes, and that is consistent through all the lessons. It's not like, hey, try this, try this, try this. And that's where YouTube and stuff can get a bit noisy, where everyone's got their own way of teaching, and really it's up to you to curate it for yourself.
Well, I feel like that goes back to the idea of knowing exactly the kind of artist you want to be, because the more of an idea of the kind of stuff you know you want to do, the more of an idea you'll be able to narrow down the kind of stuff you want to train.
Yeah. Well, the follow-up question I have for you there is, Christian, is when does that kick in? Like, how do you think you determine that?
I think it's paying attention to the kind of stuff that you consume. You know, if what you love is animation, you know, maybe you have to like not study oil painting as much. You know, you kind of have to be aware and have the confidence and the bravery to say that like, I like animation the most, or I like painting the most, or I like whatever the most, and making a stake in the sand and just focusing on that, you know? And I think part of art is like, you know, something that I started to realize is my favorite artists are really, really good at certain things and really bad at other things,
Yeah.
but they're way better at one thing than anyone else is,
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's part of becoming a great artist, is realizing that, having the humility to realize you're not going to be a savant, amazing person at every single thing that you try.
I think that's totally true. Can I tell another story based on that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was in my film school, 2001, and I had a composition class, like a visual composition class. And at the time, so one of the assignments we had was we had to make just a square composition where we cut black and white pieces of cardboard out and put those cardboard pieces in a square and compose a picture with abstract cardboard cutouts. And I hated the assignment. I absolutely hated it. And I butchered my way through it, made a composition, and I got a very bad mark on it, right? But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why did I get such a bad mark? Like, I did the assignment. I cut out these pieces and I put them on the paper. And I was kind of upset about it because it took me like a whole night to cut out these pieces. And I went to the teacher and I kind of asked, like, why did I get such a bad mark? And he's like, you took no pride in your work. It's like, I could see that you didn't like doing this. Therefore, I gave you a bad mark. It's like, you need to find the passion, the pride of ownership. Like, if you're going to do something, like, do it right. And what you're doing is a disservice to yourself by butchering your way through the assignment. And that always stuck with me. And I feel like that relates to what you're saying in terms of what you're good at and what you're not. I try and the things I'm not good at, I've kind of made peace, or not the things I'm not good at, the things I'm not interested in. I've made peace with the fact that I will never give them as much attention as the things I am interested in. But I do try and bring a work ethic, a baseline work ethic to everything that I'm going to tackle. Like, if I'm going to try and tackle anatomy or whatever it is, whatever drawing topic it is, I need to give it the respect it deserves. Even if the back of my head, I know I'm not going to fully throw myself into it, I'll still try and give it, again, that quality, that discipline that needs to be there in order for me to pull it off. Because there's nothing worse than like doing something in sort of a, halfway manner. Like, you got to have that pride of craftsmanship, or else people will know, like, people will see it.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's the value of art school, is that you get to try a party platter of things, and you get to see what you do badly at in like a safe setting, where it's like, if you want to be an illustrator and they make you 3D model and you fail that class, that's probably, it's saying something about your interests in 3D modeling,
Yeah.
And I think that's the value of art school, but ultimately it's like I think that's also the value of just drawing all the time, is you start to, the more you draw and the more you go into the world, the more you're, what you actually care about is going to manifest itself in the work that you do.
Yeah, exactly. So all of my favorite artists, like, you look at their work and you can see, like, not a single square inch of the painting or drawing went unaccounted for. Like, you are accountable. If I zoom into this, I'm accountable for that brushstroke, and you need to sign off on that. Like, before this picture is done, I will have to have final sign off on everything. And you can tell the artists who have that and the artists who don't. And again, it's one of those things that comes with time. Being able to, it's a big balancing act. Remember, folks wondering out there, does not mean that everything has to be like rendered equally. That's not what I'm talking about. Some things could be rendered fully, some things less. But you have to have final say on the statement you're making. And nothing can happen by accident. You can have happy accidents, but if you have a happy accident, you have to know that it's happening and then go with it if you choose to, or steer it in a different way if you so choose.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is somewhat related, but I remember when we had a live stream with Sinix recently.
I watched a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, and he was talking, I think one of the questions was, do you believe in talent? And I think his response was, define talent. And his definition was, talent is like, it's not it's not innate ability to paint better or play music better. It's a genuine interest in something, you know.
Yeah.
The more you have genuine interest in something, the more likely you're going to want to be able to suffer at it to get better, you know. And the more you suffer at it, the more you're going to get better, you know.
Yeah.
The more you're actually going to put in the work. And
so I fully agree with that. However, I do believe talent exists. I know because I had it with music. When I was 3 years old, I won every piano contest that my parents entered me in.
Right.
I could just play. Couldn't explain it. I was just better than everyone else when I was 3. But that doesn't, and that's not because I practiced more. I practiced, but I wasn't tied to the piano. I practiced 4 or 5 times a week, but I would just win everything. The problem with talent is it has no longevity because you just take for granted that you know how to do this thing. Therefore, you don't put in the work, or it's very less likely that you will put in the work. With drawing, I had zero talent, nothing. I had nothing. I was terrible. I used to, I wish I still had it. I used to carry around, well, I have my old sketchbook here, but I don't want to show you because I want to make a YouTube video about it. But the thing with drawing was I was obsessed with it. And therefore, I did all the things you said about putting in the work. And here I am now as a professional artist. All these skills are learned. I didn't have any natural starting point. With playing the piano, somehow I had a natural starting point that was further ahead than 99% of people. I have the trophies to prove it. They're in my parents' bedroom. So I know talent is real. So do I believe in talent? Yes, but I think it's worthless because it'll hurt you in the end, mostly. And I've known talented artists, like when I was in grade school, I wrote about this in a little book project I did a few years ago. But when I was in grade school, there was this kid, I was in 4th grade. There was this kid named Tim who could just draw circles around everyone. Like, he was amazing in the context of 4th grade. And I was so jealous, man. I wanted to be able to draw like him. And like there was one night where I borrowed one of his drawings. I took it home and I tried to copy everything about it. I tried to copy it, not trace it, but copy it, you know? And I showed it to my mom. This is kind of like my Nirvana story. I showed it to my mom and I lied to her and I said I drew both of them. And I asked her which one's better. And right away, she pointed to Tim's drawing, not mine. And I was so mad. And so I guess I have the luxury or something of seeing it both ways. I know what it's like to have a head start. Let's call talent a head start, okay? I know what it's like to have a head start because I had it in piano playing. But I also know what it's like to really work for something, which is what I've done with my painting and drawing. Yeah. And you'll see this, like, talent in sports, like people just gifted. I think in sports it's pretty obvious. People gifted physically can just do things that other kids can't do if they're taller or naturally stronger. That's real. That exists. The same thing happens with music and stuff like that too. But yeah, not to beat a dead horse. I don't put much stock into talent. And I fully agree with you and Sinix that if you have the natural burning interest, that lights the fire, and that fire is way more valuable than any kind of natural head start you might have had.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely more sustainable and it makes it more fun. And
yeah.
And I also think, I mean, you'll have better ideas and, you know, it's,
yeah. It all depends on your definition. Like Sinix said, how do you define talent? I define talent as a head start. That's all, nothing more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's like, I mean, when you see somebody that's, you know, good technically at something that you're not necessarily as good at technically or as good at, you know, it's like you know, you might be overlooking your own strengths. You know, you might be, you know, it's like maybe they have a great eye for proportion when they're really young, you know, when they're young kids and they're super creative, but maybe they're weak in color or they're weak in, you know, maybe their idea, like they can draw really well, but their ideas aren't that great, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like what you said about what you're interested in, like that's what your proclivity is. Like I've always been interested in like making a sketchy statement, but having it feel very solid. Right. If anyone has seen my art online, like I hope it all has that quality where it feels like I just sketched it out, but hopefully there's some solidity behind it. I've always been into that, which is why I love Sargent, right? But I love bands who feel like that. I love like music that does that. Anything, sketch comedy. Like I love when things can feel loose, but undeniably there's a skill behind it. I've always been into that. So, and that's what's driven me to pursue it. I just want to quickly say my piano playing now is garbage. Like I'm terrible now. Like the skills I have now are where I left off when I was 12 years old. That's when I kind of stopped practicing, let's say. So I excelled until people caught up with me. And then when people caught up with me through practice and training, I was less interested because I didn't have the mental boost to do it. Whereas with drawing, starting from nothing, I really had that fire lit under me. Like, I got to become good. I got to learn this stuff, got to practice my head off and just hit it every day. And yeah, that's what's led me to, you know, have a career as an artist now.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that any creative endeavor is about the journey. You know, it's like when you're just born with innate talent or innate skill, it's like you're removing the challenge. Really, you're removing the reason to do it. You know.
Yeah.
I think all of, you know, especially now when people are depicting images, they're like drawing stories, or they're drawing characters like knights, or, you know, heroic characters that have gone through a lot of suffering and stuff. And you know, when you just have that, you know, it's kind of like an ex machina, you know, when you just have those skills right off the bat. So I think it's harder to tell those stories if you never went through that stuff yourself.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel like I've been getting us caught up on this one question. Anything else?
Yeah. Caden Lane says, hey, Marco Bucci, love your videos. I think you have a gift for structuring and presenting information in an easily digestible way. Anywho, question 1. Where can I get an Asaro head like yours? I want one on my desk, please and thanks. I'll go at question 2 after you answer that one.
Thanks for the kind words. The Asaro head you can get from www.planesofthehead.com. I know with COVID, they recently shut down shipping, but I think it's back up now. But you can head over there. That's where I got mine.
And then question 2. When painting really tight shapes, let's say armor, I will use a sketch and paint underneath it, but I struggle with getting to a point to where I can turn off the sketch and the painting still holds together. Can you give me advice, process, tips to help with that?
Yeah, a great way to study that is do what I'm doing here and paint without a line drawing. See if you can build your drawing just with shapes of value instead of starting with a line drawing. That'll help you understand what values need to be in place for things to read. Spoiler, it's light versus shadow. That's what does it. You know, like what are the shapes of light versus what are the shapes of shadow? That's what will get your brain understanding 3D form. In something complex like armor or like chainmail or something, you still, like, it's harder because there's so many intricate little shapes, but you still want to be able to break it down into the biggest shapes possible. That's where that Photoshop median filter helps. Bring a photo of chainmail into Photoshop, throw it on with the median filter or like dry brush filter, and see what Photoshop spits out. Often it will give you an interesting simplification that still works. Because it's, you know, a digital algorithm that's processing a photograph, so it will still make it look like the photograph. Give that a shot and try and get away from starting with a line drawing. Even if you ultimately want to bring a line drawing back, that's totally fine. That's up to you, obviously. But try and do one without it, or try and learn to do it without it, and then you can use it as a tool rather than a crutch.
Nice.
Did you know I hung out with Court Jones in 2007?
Oh, nice. Just like a caricature thing, or just randomly?
I went to San Diego basically just to meet him because I loved his art so much, and I was really into caricature. And Court was we were part of the same caricature group, which is still active. I'm not sure. I'm not part of it anymore. I'm not sure if Court is, but he was cool enough to take me out plein air painting. Nice. He brought me to the Watts Atelier, 2007. Were you there in 2007, Christian?
No, I'm a new student. I got there 2017-ish. So. Yeah,
Court was teaching a caricature class, and it just came to mind because he had his live stream recently, so I tuned into it, and I was silently lurking there in the background watching you guys go, and it was cool to hear him mention that memory too, where he and I hung out back then.
Yeah. I love Court. He's awesome. He's one of the
he's a super cool guy.
Yeah,
we had a karaoke party where we tried to sing Meatloaf songs. We were terrible.
Nice.
Meatloaf's a good singer, man. He is a good singer. Well, let's not get this twisted.
Yeah, I could see him being like an incredible singer, like opera. Yeah.
Oh, like in a different life?
No. Just like that's his secret alter ego. He's like, some alias of famous opera singer.
I can see you as
identity.
You're an incredible golfer. I know it.
I could, yeah.
You're a golfer.
Tiger Woods. So you caught me. I can see you as an astronaut.
What?
I can see you as an astronaut.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm afraid of heights.
Yeah, well, that's your cover, is that you say you're afraid of heights, but you're...
yeah. I feel like if you're an astronaut, heights don't matter because you're free of gravity, so there isn't any height anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I guess like the distance, difference between falling 100 feet and 30,000 feet or a million feet, it's probably the same.
Yeah, it's probably true.
Let's see. Which art university did you attend?
Oh, I went to Ryerson University, which is heavily under fire today because of its namesake, the Ryerson guy who supported community schooling, and there's big riots there these days. But anyway, that's beside the point. I went to Ryerson University in Toronto for film. I studied there 4 years, film program, graduated 2005. Had a great time. Didn't learn a lick about drawing, nothing. But luckily, just to go on a tangent, there was a life drawing studio near Ryerson, just up the street. And I happened to stumble upon an advertisement for it, and I went there and had my very first life drawing session in 2002, I think, and met who became my original mentor, a guy by the name of Nick Kalislian. And he's a comic book artist. He's an animation character designer. His work looks nothing like mine, or my work looks nothing like his, but he was the first guy to teach me about life drawing and shape design and gesture and form and all those fundamental skills. Again, it's Nick Kalislian. He has a website, Instagram, all that fun stuff. So shout out to Nick. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I am today without him.
Yeah, Nick.
Kalislian with a K. Kalislian, I think.
Nice.
I remember one of the first things he told me when I started taking life drawing lessons with him, he's like, I'm not teaching you how to draw as much as I'm teaching you how to see. And that line could not be more accurate.
Yeah, again, I always think about how, seeing different teachers or different artists that I admire drawing from the same subject, how their drawings look completely different.
Hang on a second. Drafts. Let's see. Do I have one here? The last person who wrote a message there was very kind in saying that I believe the words were that I have a gift for structural communication about my lessons. I appreciate the comment, but let me just show you something. Here's my email. I write my lessons just on my Gmail here. This is an episode of 10 Minutes to Better Painting, episode 6 brainstorms here. And this is what my videos look like. It's endless text of, there's part 1 and show Frazetta's. These are lines I might want to say verbally. The italicized stuff is notes art of lamplight illuminating the word values, bring lamp back for a sorrow head lightings, just structural ideas that might make the video more presentable. But I think the end result is it feels very instinctual, but it's really not. It's all the red is what I don't want to use. I've trashed that, but I never throw it out. I always have it on the page because I need to know what I've trashed and what I've where I've been. I think blue is maybes. I can't remember, but this is what my videos look like. Here's an intern segment. Yeah. And they all go through this. They all go, especially my 10 minutes to better painting stuff. They all go through that. And I like to save these emails because I often do go back and look at them.
Yeah. Well, it seems incredibly common that most creative people do everything in their power to make their work look as effortless as possible.
Yeah.
They'll spend hours just trying to, on a 5-minute segment, just trying to make it just perfect. And,
and that's what I admire about any art, really. It's I've learned that things that look effortless are often the complete opposite. And when things look just ordained to be that way, like they've been ordained to be that way, I love that because I know there's some serious skill there, and I just try and reach for that bar all the time. Not that I always hit it. I think sometimes I have hit it, sometimes I haven't. I've received my fair share of criticisms as well. So, it's always a work in progress, but that is the goal, to just refine, edit. Editing, going back to editing, that's where the skill is. If you're a good editor, you'll be a good communicator, be it visually or verbally or written, because you constantly will strive for a better version of itself in the edit. Let your first draft be garbage. Often when I'm planning my videos and writing, and that's the beauty about writing, you can just write garbage. It takes you 2 seconds. Just write a sentence that's garbage and then fix it. Painting, it's a bit more difficult, bit more painful to do that. It's hard to paint something that's garbage and then fix it. But I feel like that's what sketchbooks are for. Put all, brain dump into that. Try shapes out, try values out in your sketchbook. What I'm doing here, I'm not afraid of making garbage on this canvas, but I'll fix it. If I find a shape that's not working, I'll fix it. And that's all editing. So this is how I paint. I paint and edit on the same canvas, instead of trotting out ideas and thumbnails, which I do sometimes for clients if they need it, but I'm much more comfortable in embracing the process on the same canvas. And I feel like you can still edit this way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think another reality of all this stuff is it's slightly related in the sense where, when you look at a final image for some movie or some character design or some animation, especially with character design for Disney, for example, when you look at the end result, you're looking at maybe 1,000 or 2,000, the end result of a few thousand iterations.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the culmination of maybe a few thousand hours of work,
Absolutely.
over many different people. And, it's when you can, I think when people compare themselves to the end result of something, they're being unfair to themselves because they're comparing themselves to, potentially the work of, a dozen people,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Just give yourself the time, give yourself the time to work through your problems, work out. If a drawing's not, that's the other thing. There's no concept when you look at someone's finished work about, like you said, the time it must have taken. It feels like it was done instantly. That's the magic of good art. It feels like it was just done. But give yourself the time. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself time to work through problems, just like the creators of your favorite work undoubtedly also had. Pixar takes 4 or 5 years to make a movie. Yeah, I love the look of Luca, by the way. I absolutely love the painterly quality of it. I'm watching it right now. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm loving every frame of the art.
Yeah. I mean, and it's everything that goes into just a 5-minute animated sequence is probably way more than anyone would ever expect.
Yeah. Hey, you see this shape right here? This awesome triangle shape? That's important. Let's just go silent for a second while I get that. That sells the side plane of his nose and the plane of his eyebrow here, but then it dips. It goes this way. It is just an incredible little shape. And this is one of those things that I know from experience. If I can get that, I can capture a lot about the truth about how his eye is built, if I can get that. And I'm not always good at here's one of those things where I feel like this live chat is a good time to pause and reflect on that. In my YouTube videos, I tend to be more broad strokes, no pun intended. But here, I feel like the audience is interested in the little things that make you tick. And this is one of those things, honing in on this shape. Then there's a bit of reflected light in that shadow here that just lightens it a bit. And then, and the story's not over, folks, there's a bit of dark accent here. Dark accent is the opposite of a highlight. It's the darkest passage of a painting, often caused by ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is when the bounce light cannot enter a certain spot. It's usually where it's a very deep crevice or a fold. In this case, the epicanthic fold of his eye is causing a bit of a dark accent there. Those things need to be fully considered in order for this painting to be a success for me. And I'm hyper specific about certain things. Other things I can throw away, the way the brushstrokes go around them. That's throwaway stuff. That can almost be anything. But this has to be specific, and that's I was going to say a value consideration. I don't mean light and dark. I mean what I value in a painting is largely in this camp here, and I don't feel like I've got that shape right. But we can go back to talking now.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, cool. I'm interested in you doing this triangle.
Yeah, triangles are hard. I've already sacrificed the triangle. Let's get it back. Triangles are powerful too. That's one of my favorite shape is a triangle.
Yeah,
I know you were going to ask.
Yeah, what's your second favorite shape?
Oh, a square, a rectangle.
Okay, I feel like I could keep asking what your favorite shapes are. You will have answers. Did you have like your top 50 shapes?
Yeah, I have them ready in a list here.
Okay, yeah. You were preparing.
Number 50 is a dodecahedron.
Oh, wow. Well, why is it number 50 and not number 45?
Well, I wasn't prepared to answer that question, so you got me.
I got you.
You got me. Oh, yeah. No. I said I was ready for you, but you got me.
I thought you were a good artist, man. Good artists know they have a top 100 shape list.
How's my posture? I feel like I'm leaning over. I'm always I have a terrible posture when I sit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on a MacBook right now, so I'm hunched over.
Hey, what shows are you watching right now?
Let's see. I would like to watch the new Marvel show, Loki. I've heard good things about it. Let's see. I guess I am a sucker for rewatching One Punch Man.
What's that?
The anime One Punch Man.
Oh,
I'm surprised you never heard of it. It's about so the premise of One Punch Man is the main character Saitama, he defeats every enemy in one punch because he's so powerful.
Awesome.
And it's about how he's so strong that he's lost all will to live because he has no struggle anymore because he's just too powerful.
Reminds me of Talent. Okay.
Yeah. I think you would. It's a pretty funny show. I think you would like it quite a bit. It's
cool.
It's on Netflix. How about you? What shows are you watching?
I'm a big crime guy. I just watched Mayor of Easttown. Loved it. My wife and I watch unsolved mysteries and stuff like that. Cold case stuff. I love crime shows.
Yeah. I've been watching Monk clips recently. I don't know if you're.
I also don't know what that is.
Oh, what? It's a like an OCD detective that.
Oh, it's called Monk.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta check it out. Is it like obviously it's a detective, so it's crime stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have to check it out. Is it where do you watch it?
I think that all the episodes. It's older now. I think it's early 2000s, but all the episodes are on YouTube, I think.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'll give it a shot. Never heard of it.
That's good. Marco, I have a very important question for you.
Uh-oh. Yep.
Is Weezer the best band of all time?
No. Next question.
Dang. Because I think they're the best. I think they're the best band of all time.
You actually think that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, well, I respect your opinion, Christian, but I also respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
I like Weezer, by the way, but best band of all time. I mean,
Blue Album, man.
Blue Album is. Oh, yeah, that deserves a spot in the Mount Rushmore of rock albums for sure.
Yeah. I
was obsessed with that album, and like anytime that album comes on, any song, like I'm stopping to listen for sure. I'll stop to listen to it.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a band called the Tragically Hip?
No, I haven't. They
are a Canadian band that never really made it anywhere else. They're awesome. If you're interested in trying some new music, well, it's old now, but unfortunately the lead singer passed away a couple of years ago. But they're called The Tragically Hip, and my favorite album, one of my favorite albums ever, is their album called Day for Night by The Tragically Hip. So good. Give it a shot. You might like it. It's like alternative rock from the 90s. I think that album was like 94. So it's like right in line with Weezer's Blue Album, sort of time-wise.
Right.
Of the same zeitgeist, you might say. So give it a shot. A lot of people don't know about them. Every Canadian knows about them, but not a lot of outside Canada folks know.
I'll definitely check them out. I've written them down.
Give it a shot.
I'll let you know what I think.
Yeah, sure. What else we got in the chat there?
Let's see. Peter asks, what about your workspace helps you quite a bit to be productive?
Sorry, what about the workspace? What?
I guess so. I guess the question is, like, what about your workspace helps you be productive?
Well, right now I'm actually redesigning my workspace. So I don't know if you can see my webcam. I've got a whole mess behind me because I'm trying to move things around. And this room used to be serve several purposes, and now I only want to have it be my art studio. So I'm redesigning it. But so right now the answer to your question is nothing about it makes you feel inspired. But it is separate from every other room in my house. I'm above my garage right now. So my house is actually separate from this, which means that I don't hear anything. Like when my kid is home, I don't hear her. Although when my kid's home, I'm always with her, but I don't hear anything that's happening in the house. So that's nice. I'm separated sound wise. And, I suppose because this is my room, I'm the only one who ever really comes in here. So like it's a mess, but I know every nook and cranny of it. So I feel like for me, it's not a mess. You might look at it and say, oh, it's messy. But for me, I understand this mess. So that helps me. But I'm currently in search of a new design for this room that will help me even more. I'm building a new desk right now and, trying to get like one of those big Wacom arms that I think Proko has got in his studio. Stuff like that. But yeah, it's my own space, which is all I really need. I used to just work in my bedroom back when I was single and only, just having an apartment sort of thing. And that worked too. As long as I have my own space, that's really all I need.
Nice. That's a good answer. Yeah. Gerald Dorado asks, hi guys, by any chance, do you know any colorblind painters? Any advice on how they get around color? Yeah, I'm a colorblind myself. I know there are special glasses for colorblind people, but that's relatively new. I'm sure there had been colorblind artists before. Thanks.
The only artist I know who is, I'm not sure if he's fully colorblind or partially, but Peter DeSev is colorblind, and his work is amazing in color. Now, I think the way he gets around it, I've seen some articles where he works with he does a lot of like underpainting, where he'll lay down a tone first and kind of get some values in. And the nice thing about underpainting, like a burnt sienna, sort of like underpainting like this color, is you can then, it helps harmonize color when you are building on top of a singular color, because that underpainting will kind of shine through your subsequent color choices, and that can help. So try the underpainting method. Also, my advice, and this is just in general advice for everyone, is link colors with grays. I've done it in this picture, which is inspired by the reference, but when colors are in the grays, like this range, they are close together. They are linked because every color has gray in common. So the second you are in any way neutral, almost any color will work together, or like not almost any color will work together because it's linked by the gray. So don't, instead of like going for hugely saturated colors, which can be too loud, stay in the grays. You'll have a much better chance of having colors work together. And then if you want, you can add like go to overlay mode and, try and dial in like maybe a bit more red in the cheek. Just keep your tablet pressing lightly, and, those gray colors will be augmented a little bit, become more saturated, but the foundation of gray will help harmonize your work. That'd be my initial advice off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, and I believe that, I mean, I think color is important, but I think one of the more important thing is value and the read. And I know plenty of artists that, they wait and do color last. And we did a live stream with Dom Lay yesterday, and he did 90% of the image, or 99% of the image, just black and white. I think it turns out really, really, like, he gets a good result just using black and white.
Yeah, he gets a very powerful light result in his stuff. Yeah, and he's got a nice sense of like high contrast, controlling that high contrast. Yeah, for sure. Values are king. I like to work the opposite way, where I do color and value at the same time, just because I'm immensely interested in color. It's even though values are more important, colors are equally as interesting to me as values. Actually, probably more so. So instead of, for me, it's become very important that I tackle them with equal gusto as the values. But values are more important, and I'm aware of that when I build in when I work in color. I'm aware of what the value is first and foremost. My color survival guide class, which is on sale one day only today, will give you tons of color theories that you can plug in. And I feel like it would help the commenter here, because the class, each chapter is broken into like the theory of it and then the practice of it. And I feel like if you know what the theory is, even if you're maybe unable to see the color, you will probably have a better chance of being able to plug it in. So I do recommend that. I've put a lot of work into that class. And for those who have already ordered it, I have just putting the finishing touches on chapter 6 right now, which is the final chapter of the class. So look for that in the next coming few days.
Yeah, and I guess this goes beyond the question a little bit, but I think it might sound corny, but I think, an artist's weaknesses are, I think that's part of what makes art unique. It's if you're colorblind, you're probably going to be focusing way more on, value and shape, and
yeah.
If you're not colorblind, you have way more things to juggle.
Yeah, that could be true as well. And oftentimes when I use color, I'm not really thinking about the specific color I'm choosing. I do that whole thing where if the value is right, chances are the color will be right. So even though I love color, I am way more focused always on value. One thing about color that is almost the closest thing to a rule for me is any dark accent, anything super dark has to do with flesh is going to be warm. So like when I'm painting his neck there, that's in deep dark accent shadow, I got this like warm red, and I put that in. If it's too cold, he starts looking like a zombie. These guys almost have a zombie-like appearance because the light has been so altered back there. But even back for them, I may warm up some of their darks. This kind of gets back to that question about changing the illustration, but this is such a minor change that it's almost not worth mentioning. But I am going to warm up some of these darks here. What else we got here, Christian?
Somebody said something about the Tragically Hip.
Oh, what'd they say?
I'm Canadian and Tragically Hip for sure.
Nice.
Lamb says that.
Nice. Yeah, I grew up loving them. They were like my favorite band for many, many years. So obviously I'm hugely nostalgic for it, but to this day, I'll put that album Day for Night on and listen to it front to back. Every song, like Weezer's Blue Album, for me, every song is killer. And they're all different. They're all very poetic. It's the range that band has is pretty remarkable, I think.
Yeah. Let's see. Wayne also asks, can you walk through your thinking process of painting tonal range?
Tonal range? Well, it has to do with, if I'm interpreting the question correctly, it has to do with value keying. And all that means, it's a fancy term for how light are your lights and how dark are your shadows. Are you going to be here in the lights and down here in the shadows? Or are you going to be more subtle with it? Like, and that's one of the challenges of this painting is every face has a different tonal range. And the thing that, this is a good question, the thing that roots this picture is that all the shadows, regardless of where they are in space, all the shadows are pretty dark. Like I can sample here. I'll sample this guy's shadows. Look where it is. Then I'll sample this guy's shadows. It basically didn't change, right? That is a very common way that nature does this all the time, but other artists too. They will root their shadows. They will group their shadows in the same level of value, same darkness. And then that gives you so much room for the lights to play. Because like you can see it in this picture, the lights on this guy are way up here. The lights on this guy are way down there. How does that work? Well, the only way that works is if you group your shadows way down here. And then you have all this room to play. If you made this guy's shadows up here, then all of a sudden this guy's lights would look like shadows. Like they wouldn't look right. So that's huge, knowing where your groups are. Now, there's no rules for that. You can group your lights as they are here, or you can maybe do the opposite where you group your lights way up here and have all this room for shadow. You have to know that in advance, I suppose, or finding that you have to find that in advance. But that's how I always think. I always know what my groupings are before I set out. And if it doesn't work, different value keys will have different emotional content. Like this feels very, like when you group the shadows very dark like this, it can have a, I don't know what the word is. It has a certain vibe to it. I'm not sure what the word is, but there's a certain emotion tied to it. Whereas if you have a lot of room for your shadows in values, it tends to feel very luminous. A lot of reflected light in the shadows will feel very bright. Like if you look at Pixar's Luca, the shadows have tons of values in them because that's what makes a picture feel warm and welcoming, or it can make a picture feel warm and welcoming. Whereas if you do this, well, this is more of a detective thriller, so it's perfect for this movie, So that's my answer off the top of my head there.
Nice.
I love how you sell my answers, Christian. I give you this answer, you're like, nice. It's great. I genuinely am enjoying this.
Yeah, it's the best answer I've ever heard.
This is tons of fun, guys. I'm having fun here. I hope it's coming through in the live chat.
Yeah,
I hope it's coming through like in the viewership.
Yeah.
In terms of people enjoying it, what I'm trying to say.
People are enjoying it. Let's see. Sketch.
You want to know what my favorite plane of the head is?
Yeah.
It's this. Let's see. Do these guys? Okay. Right under the lips. My favorite plane. The lower lip comes out. Then right here, as it goes under. I love that plane. But what I love about it, these little spots here go out. So this goes in and creates a plane that looks like this. That's a plane. But then here it actually comes out again and billows out. Sometimes it's known as the pillars of the mouth. And it's I love that transition. These guys don't have it too noticeably, but I love this little plane right there, accompanied by where the mouth goes out. Those are my favorite planes of the head. Just in case you're wondering.
Yeah. I think the bridge of the nose, or the keystone of the nose is my favorite.
The glabella.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one too. That'll often get a halftone.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were about to read a question. I interrupted you.
Oh, good. Sketch247 asks, why do you insist on using 50 pieces of reference?
Oh, hi, Brian. Nice try. What's up, my guy? Get off the chat. I don't want to answer your questions. That's an inside joke with my friend Brian.
Okay.
Nice.
Let's see. I'm going to read through a long question real quick.
Okay.
I'm going to try and break it down so it's easier to read before I read it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm on my other. That's hilarious. Okay, sorry, I'm back.
All good. Okay, this is a long one. Desis Fafal asks or says, "Hi Marco, I'm a 16-year-old self-taught artist from Turkey. I've never had the opportunity to get any art classes or education. I learned the fundamentals from artists like you on YouTube. First, I'd like to say thank you so much for sharing your knowledge on YouTube. It means a lot to artists like me. Second, even though I have improved so much over the years, I have a hard time starting projects I want to start because I feel like I'm never ready or like I need to improve before starting, and I have a really hard time with it because how do you push yourself to start a project even though you don't feel like you're good enough?" There are two other parts. I'll let you answer that part before we move on.
Okay. Thanks for the kind words. I'm super happy that my classes can help. And in terms of your question there, one of the skills you need to build, not just you, everyone, is being able to work with the process. Like, you won't have all the answers going into it. We've kind of touched on this in earlier questions about things feeling like they need to be ordained to be that way before you start. I think Andrew Stanton said that, Pixar director, but that's not the case. All you need to start, all you should have is just that inkling of direction. Like, I'm going to go this way. And then when you start going that way, you'll encounter obstacles, which of course will feel unwelcome because obstacles are always like that. But like, the whole thing that you're trying to do is you're trying to learn how to operate when faced with adversity. I think what your question presupposes here is that you want to have things worked out beforehand, but like, that's never going to happen. Never. I started this painting not knowing if I was going to be able to get it right. So far, it's been okay. I mean, there are things I like and things I don't like, but you have to learn to embrace the process and find mistakes and successes along the way, and then work with them and mold them. If you deny yourself a chance to do that, it's quite literally damaging to you. So dive in, and like, if it doesn't work, you'll live another day. Just try again, you know? It's that you need to put in those reps, and like, just to be blunt, you will fail, or you will. Everyone will. I will, you will, whatever. But who cares, right? Like, it's all in the name of learning. So just get yourself in the mindset that, hey, if and when failure happens, I'll learn from it and move on, and maybe not fall into that pitfall the next time. If you never start, which you said you have trouble with starting, just know that that is more damaging than starting and failing. So you're actually doing more damage in your current state. So fix that by just diving in. And my next advice is pick projects that are digestible. Like, don't pick projects that'll take a year. Pick a project that'll take a week, whatever it could be, a painting or whatever your project might be. Make yourself able, pick something that you're able to do in a week, and then evaluate it. Because a week, you know, you have a lot of weeks in your life, whereas years, you have way fewer of those. So do that. Give yourself the ability to, the lenience to do projects that you can do more quickly.
Yeah.
I think that's all. That's part one. Is there more?
Yeah.
Okay.
I really would like to work in a European or American studio professionally in the future, but I know I'll never be able to afford to get an art education. Would sending my projects / portfolio be good enough?
Oh yeah. These days, it's like, I mean, you don't need a formal art education. I never had one. I had teachers along the way, but like, they were just 10-week classes or DVDs I've bought. I never did the art school thing, and it's worked out for me. So, you know, I'm living proof that you don't need a formal art education. You just need to study, and like Christian said, get that mileage in and be passionate. And if you're passionate about it, you will put in the study. And thankfully, you know, YouTube has tons of resources for you, and the value of a physical art school to me is way less these days. They are valuable, but you know, you can probably find a lot of the stuff you need online right now on places like Proko.com, for example. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about that part.
Well, and I feel like, I mean, I know this from experience that they would actually rather see your personal projects and your portfolio than the fact that you've gone to an art school. Like,
oh yeah,
no one cares that you have a degree. Like, no one will ever ask. Like,
no.
I was talking to a guy a few days ago. He works in tech, and you know, he worked at Tesla and stuff. And he was saying you could just lie about it, you know, because no one actually checks. Like,
yeah, no one's actually going to check. That's a good point.
You shouldn't lie about your credentials, but it's like, his point was that no one cares to the point where you can go to Harvard, and no one's going to even like check that you've gone to Harvard or not. You know, like, if you can show that you've done good work and good projects, especially on your own, that's going to be way more valuable to somebody that wants to hire you than, you know, you having a degree from Art Center or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, just like the questioner said, suggested, submit your portfolio with your personal projects, but that goes back to your first part. You got to do them first. And like, again, not everything you do will make it into your portfolio. I remember when I was first learning life drawing, I remember Nick, my first teacher there. I remember we had a life drawing session, and Nick had to go home early. And later in that session, I thought I did a really good drawing. So I cut it out and I put it on Nick's desk, and I wrote like, should this be in my portfolio? Because I was really proud of it. And I expected him to say like, yes, that's great. But his answer was, for now, it's in your portfolio. And I feel like that's the spirit you have to embody. Like, everything you do will be your best work for now, and you will do better and better as you go. Like, what improvement means is that your worst work gets better. Not necessarily your best work will get better too, but it gets better in a small increment. Your worst work will get better incrementally. That's what improvement looks like. And you have to just do the reps, put that work in, do your projects. And like I said, if you have that fear, I don't know what it takes to say this to yourself, but like, just understand that you're doing more harm to yourself by not doing things than by like waiting for the moment where you feel ready. Because like you already know, it's never going to come. You just gotta do it.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like people who are hiring, especially young people like you, if you're 16, like they're not going to expect you to be a master artist. You know, they're not going to expect you, you know, if you get hired anywhere, they're not going to be putting you on any like super important projects to put out any fires. You're going to be there to learn mainly, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you know, they don't expect any 16-year-old that they hire to be competent, like incredibly competent to the point to where they could do this amazing production work. They're going to be hiring you to invest into you to be able to, you know, make you somebody that could put out fires and make you somebody that, you know, that they'd want to be around, you know? At that point, it's way more just about, again, cultivating that possibility of you just being curious about it and doing projects. And I know Stan, like, you know, Stan, when he was really young, like he did tons of crazy projects, like as like a 13-year-old, like he animated his entire, like this animated short. You guys could find it on YouTube. It's called Stanimation. And he submitted it to animation contest when he was young, and it won the contest, and it showed on every like American Airlines flight for a year or something.
That's awesome.
And it's like, you know, just this 13-year-old kid doing this. It's like not a great animation, but it's like it is a great animation in the sense that it was like this project that this young person finished entirely on their own, you know.
Great achievement more than a great piece of work. Yeah.
And you know, it was good enough, and that led him to, you know, like carry that mindset of finishing stuff throughout his you know, his career. And it's like, I think that's the thing that people are looking for. It's not necessarily your technical skills, it's your ability to actually finish things.
Yeah, finishing things is a highly underrated skill. And like, I think a lot of people don't even consider it a skill, but I'll tell you, just having known a lot of artists in my life, and even me becoming an artist, most people are terrible finishers. They'll be great starters. They'll start a million projects, but how many projects can you finish? That's the measure of success that I tend to gravitate toward with my work now. If I start a project, got to finish it. I almost don't allow myself to abandon projects anymore, unless they're truly not worth it. But you know, and if it takes a month, then I'll do it. Sometimes I have ideas that I start 6 months ago and I return to 6 months later, but like I will finish them. It's just ingrained in my discipline now, because to me it's so valuable to actually carry through on your own ambitions, and finishing projects is huge. So many artists are bad at that, and I used to be bad at that. I used to do the same thing.
Yeah, and I think it's like a big part of finishing projects is like, one, enjoying the entire process of it and not being goal oriented. And the other part is just like having faith that your idea is good, you know, because at some point, no matter how good the idea might seem, at some point you're going to start doubting it, you know, whether, you know, it's like, I'm sure
like when I'm almost done my YouTube videos, I'm like, is this video any good? But at that point it's like, well, who cares? Put it out.
Right. And it's like, it doesn't, you know, the beauty of art is that there's always the next image, you know. It's like, you know, the thing that I ask people is like, you know, if you did the perfect painting, would you stop painting? And if the answer is no, then maybe you're painting for the wrong reason. Or yes, if you did the perfect painting, like you're essentially, you're never going to be finished as a painter. You know? Yeah. There's always another thing to try and do.
Yeah, man, I wish I could enjoy my own work like that. It's impossible for me. Like I've never really liked anything I've done. Like, not that I think it's bad, but I just can't enjoy anything I do as a viewer, because like I made it. I know every little piece of it, so I can't enjoy it.
Right.
I wish that was different. I think a lot of artists are like that, and not just me. But I wish it was different. I wish I could look at my own work and say, oh, you know, that guy did a good job. But it's just not a reality for me.
Well, I was talking to Stephen Zapata about this too, where it's like some of the images that you love the most aren't necessarily going to be the images that you are going to be able to make, you know?
Right.
Like some of my favorite artists are painters I'd never even consider painting like, but I like their end result a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's very true. It's true for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And like letting go of that as a possibility, I think is another part of finishing things, is like being aware of your weaknesses and where you can, you know, get better or worse, or, you know, the things you can actually contribute.
Yeah, for sure. What else we got? I can stay. I don't know if the 2 hours is the limit. I can stay a little bit past the hour mark here. We're coming up on 2 hours, which is nuts.
1:55 and 58 seconds. So
nice. Yeah. I'm on Eastern time, so for me it's almost 5 o'clock. But my daughter doesn't get home. She gets home around 5, but my wife's here to take her, so I can go for a bit more.
Well, there's a question about Wayne, the guy that was asking about the band. So
oh yeah,
Tragedy Hip. He also asks, can Marco talk about his mentorship program? Will he start again later this year? If so, will it be on the weekend?
Yeah. So I'm actually just wrapping up my first semester of it right now. We have 1 week left with my current students. And before that, I taught at CGMA. So I've been teaching this kind of mentorship for years, but this is the first year I'm doing it on my own without a host like CGMA or Proko or anything. This is just on my own. Anyway, wrapping up the semester next week. I just need a bit of a breather before I launch another one, but I do plan on launching another one, the applications for another one, probably in late August, maybe early September. So check out my Instagram for posts about that around that time. My Instagram is just @Bucci blog, my last name with blog at the end. And the weekend, currently no, because I do the live sessions on Wednesdays and the critiques on the following Tuesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday are my days. And I don't think that'll change, because like those are the days where that's when I'm available. And if it's my mentorship, I'm really going to program it around when I'm available. Right. So, unfortunately I can't do weekends. Weekends don't work with my schedule. So if that precludes you from taking it, I apologize, but I don't think that will change, because weekdays are just the only time I can commit, the hours needed to deliver these lectures and critiques. And it's all done live. Like the lectures are live, the critiques are live. So it's probably not nearly as worth it if you can't attend live. But the times are like, we always start at 12 o'clock Eastern. So if you're in Europe, that's usually like 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. if you're in like Britain or something. And then obviously 3 hours, it's like 9 a.m. where you are, Christian. So I try to choose a time zone that could accommodate most viewers. But anyway, everyone's got their own schedules, I suppose.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, shameless plug, Marco Bucci just released a thing on Proko, and he also has stuff on his website, and that is also all very good.
Yeah, my color survival guide on sale, 25% off, 1 day only, Proko.com.
Nice.
It's do my best to put my videos out. Well, that will help you even if you're not learning from me in person.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Let's see. Lance I'm not going to even try to pronounce his name. Hello, Marco. My art style is heavily influenced by comic with strong line art and color blocking. I also have a big interest with painting styles like John Singer Sargent and N.C. Wyeth. Do you have any experience with combining two different styles together? I've tried many times, and it has only left me unsatisfied.
Usually, that's the way you phrase it is difficult, because a style is by nature like a departure from reality. Like that's what makes a style recognizable. So you can depart from reality in a million different ways. So if you're trying to combine two different painters, chances are you're just trying to combine two things that are incompatible in the way they depart from reality. Like a style needs to be cohesive with its rules. And if you're trying to combine like Sargent's brushwork with Leyendeckers brushwork, it's not compatible. They're two very different aesthetics. I can't remember the artist you said, but like probably that's what's happening to you. Chances are you'd be much more benefited by understanding why they're departing from reality and how they're doing it, and then applying that to your own taste and your own personality, and like then you might be a little bit more lucky or a bit more guided to find how you want to do it, like taking the spirit of your favorite artists and applying it in one cohesive style, if that makes sense, rather than trying to like say, oh, how would this artist paint a cheek versus, and then how would this artist paint grass? That might not work so well. But if you understand why they're departing from reality and then how they are, it'll lead you to maybe make your own decisions and therefore come up with your own style, which is maybe even then you can call it totally your own too.
It was a NCY at the John Singer Sargent.
Oh yeah. So yeah, those are two different painters. Yeah. I mean, they both have simple statements though.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Christian. You were good.
I think you could still pull elements from both in the sense where I think you could study NCY its composition and then combine it with maybe Sargent's brushwork. But it's important to choose things that don't overlap as much.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. Like you could definitely take a composition from someone and brushstrokes from someone and combine those for sure. Yeah.
And as it relates to master studies, the advice that I got from Jeff Watts is to, spend a while doing a master study and then put the master study away and try to apply what you learned from a master study to a reference.
Yeah,
absolutely. Do a Sargent painting and study that for a while, and then just go and apply his brush strokes, whatever you're trying to focus on, to a portrait or something, and see what comes across.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good piece of advice.
Let's see. Akash Yadav says, approaching a single object with well-organized 5 values is relatively easy, but how does one approach a complex scene where all the various objects will have different local values plus the 5 values? Restatement of the question: how does one approach a complex scene with various objects that all have different local values?
Yeah, I feel like a good question. I feel like I touched on this a bit before, where with the value grouping, generally, regardless of what the local value is, the shadows can still be grouped similarly. So even if you have a white, curtain or a white fountain with a dark rubber tire, both of their values can be grouped in similar values, like dark values. And then what changes is their lights. So think about it that way. That is a great way of unifying the values in your painting, is to either group the lights together or the shadows together. That will make the objects feel cohesive and like they exist in the same environment. And nature does this too, by the way. The way we perceive nature is very similar to this. So that will help. If everything has its own shadow value and its own light value and then everything starts to feel separate and like cut out or something. So grouping values is really the answer to that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's all just about simplifying the image to something that's more, accessible and understandable.
Yeah.
Gilly says, "Hi, Mr. Bucci. I was wondering, do I need to study fine art if I am aiming towards visual character development as a career? What fundamentals would I need to study in order to be prepared? Thank you for any suggestions."
Cool. Hey. I definitely don't think you need to study fine art for that. It would be a bit alarming to me if you didn't like any fine art, though. Like if you only liked other character design, I'd be a little suspicious. It's fine art is just, there's so much quality there over the years. Not that you have to study fine art at a school, but being inspired by fine artists is a useful tool because there's just a wealth of knowledge and information there. So I'd still look there for information, but no, you don't have to actually study fine art in terms of like, oh, this painting was painted in 1875 and it caused this reaction from the bourgeoisie. Like, you don't have to do that. But, what was the second part of the question?
Let me find it. What fundamentals would I need to study in order to be prepared?
Well, All of them.
Yeah.
Study drawing. Well, okay, drawing is a broad umbrella term. What I'm doing right now, let's just put it in context, because that's a very big question. What I'm doing now is I'm drawing shapes of value. You know, like I've pointed out a few times, I'm like, I'm looking at this shape of light right here, and I'm trying. It's like a wishbone shape, and I need to capture that simplicity of it in order for my painting to be successful. And it's not there, right? I'm working on this shape. It's not quite as beautiful as it is in the reference. I need to work on this. So I'm practicing right now I'm studying and practicing my shape design, which will lead to better lighting, which will lead to better design. It's all connected. So that's huge. However, I would not recommend studying shape design if you have no knowledge of the planes of the head. You need to know which direction do the cheekbones face, what's responsible for that. What's the angle of the cheekbone versus the angle of the chin versus the angle of the jaw, the angle of like the mandible here versus the cheekbone. Those are all things that are more textbooky, but you need to know them. Those are fundamentals of the head. If you don't know them, your character designs won't have a chance of standing up next to the pros, because the pros know this stuff, and you need to as well. And then if you know those, like the planes of the head, now suddenly you can design with them, and now suddenly you can plug in those wishbone shapes and whatever and have them take on meaning in your picture. You can like deliver the planes of the head with you can deliver like 5 planes of the head with just one shape. You know what I mean? That's where you need to study. So part of it is like, planes of the head or anatomy and stuff like drier stuff. So it's general. I mean, I find it thrilling, but more textbooky stuff. And then the artistic stuff like shape design. So that's huge, and you need both. You don't necessarily need to be a master of, you don't need to be Stan Prokopenko anatomy wise, but you do need to know the stuff that's going to allow you to then express it with shapes, whatever level you need to take it to. And every artist will be different there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I was listening to Jim Lee give a talk about how he doesn't actually know the names of any of the muscles he draws. He's just like, that's the bumpy one, that's the one on the arm, that's the one, the top of the, and that's where the leg, and it's like Jim Lee is a great craftsman. Just ideas.
Like I love watching Jim Lee on his channel or David Finch draw these shapes, because it's like they're so informed by reality, but they're expressing them with their own shapes, ideas, and I just love that.
Right. Well, and kind of going back to the fine art thing, do you need to study fine art to get into visual character development? Like if you're studying like modern character designers, a lot of them actually have studied fine art. So inevitably you're going to be getting some secondhand influence from fine artists that you don't even know. Like I suspect that most character designers know who John Singer Sargent is. Or at least a bunch of them. And,
like I'm trying to find here. This is from Luca. I don't know. I don't know the artist behind this. Someone can put it in the chat, I'm sure. But I just Googled Pixar Luca. Like those faces are informed by real planes of the head, like the way that the eye socket appears to go into the skull and then come out for the cheek. The values are very informed by real things. It's just that the shapes are completely caricatured, but like the anatomy's there. As weird as that sounds, you almost look at this and you don't see anatomy, but like it's there. You could not draw that without knowing something about the planes of the head. Not that you have to know as much as like Jeff Watts, but you do need to know about them enough to caricature them and simplify them and deliver them in a digestible package to the viewer.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and a lot of the book is about just being good enough to, be able to, it's like you don't have to be a genius necessarily to become a great scientist or a musician or an artist or anything. You need to know enough information to apply that stuff to the problems that people are trying to solve. And if you know enough, then, you could get pretty far on just enough.
Yeah, I like that. And that's the thing with projects. It's like every project kind of just heightens what that little incremental bit. And like take on projects, this goes back to the question a few questions ago, take on projects whose subject matter you feel like you know something about already. Like writers say this adage, write what you know. I'm not sure if you guys have heard that. With painting and drawing, it's like try and paint and draw something you know about already, because you'll get a bit of a kickstart that way. And then slowly branch into more foreign things, and you'll be able to apply what you know to that. Don't start painting something you have no idea about, because you'll probably just be met with too many failures and it'll stall the whole thing. Give yourself a fighting chance at success. I often tell my students, like when you're doing studies, pick something that you think you could knock out of the park. Pick that and study that, because chances are you won't knock it out of the park. You'll have successes and failures. Whereas if you pick something that's so out of your depth, like something that's so foreign to you, chances are you're going to have like 90% failure and only 10% success. And that's not good for you. Like you want to win more than you lose. And I think there's actually a ratio, like a 60-40 ratio. You want to try and go for that. And like they say with playing with kids, you want to let your kid win like 60% of the time. So they taste the loss, but they feel like they can win. And I think it's like 60-40. And I feel like it's like that for art. Give yourself a subject matter that you feel like you can 60% win. But I'd even go more. Give yourself a subject matter that you feel like you can absolutely crush, and study that. Get confidence from that, and then keep that train rolling.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a Draftsman episode with a guy named Flint Dilley coming out soon. And Flint Dilley, he's he's not an artist, but he's worked as a writer and in video games for his entire career. And like he worked with Gary Gygax originally, and wrote with Frank Miller, and wrote a bunch of the Transformers stuff, and he helped develop Pokemon Go. And what he was saying in his Draftsman episode is to try and gamify every aspect of your education, where you have those victories, you have those things that you can be proud of and show your friends, and post to Instagram and feel good about it. Then you have other things that you don't show anybody, that are just like, what he says he does every day is he will write for 20 minutes every day, just whatever comes to mind. Just nice. Just complete garbage. Like the cat is sitting on the ledge and I am drinking coffee with cream and it is sunny outside and I like potatoes, Nice. And it's complete nonsense, arbitrary stuff, but there's something about that routine and that exercise that keeps you fresh and clean and loose. Whereas I think people who don't necessarily do those exercises might be at a disadvantage, because they're not, just getting as much mileage.
Yeah, that totally relates to what we've been talking about with the person who was afraid to start projects. Like mileage is the thing that you need. I totally agree. And don't be afraid. Like I put my YouTube documents as a draft of my emails, and like no one ever sees those. I share it with my patrons sometimes, but like I would never show anyone that. I do sketches where I'll never show them. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's really important to have your sandbox time. I've heard it called. It's a good word for it. And it's hard today with the culture of social media. You want to feel like you're keeping up and posting everything, but like again, I think you got to have some cards close to the vest and like let your development happen. You got to let what's the word when babies are in the container when they're born?
I'm sure I can't think of it, but I'm sure it's like I'm gonna
incubator.
Oh, yeah, incubate.
You have to have some kind of incubation quality to your improvement. You can't just post everything. So like do stuff that needs a bit of incubation, and like revisit those ideas, get better at them. Keep a notebook where you just put junk in it, like Christian was talking about. Like that stuff all helps.
Yeah. And I think it's like keep a sketchbook and don't ever show anybody.
Yeah. I have several of those lying around. Like I can look at them right now that I would never ever show anyone. They're just doodles, little shape ideas.
Yeah, and like don't even try to. Yeah, the advice I've gotten is don't even try to do good drawings. Just like draw.
Yeah, like I saw one artist post advice that I kind of like it. I don't actually literally do it myself, but he's like, label a sketchbook bad drawings, like label it that, and only put bad drawings in there. And I thought that's a great idea. Like whether you literally do it or not is kind of irrelevant, but the spirit of it is something that I foster in my own stuff. Like, I'm just not afraid of putting anything down, because like again, editing is where the magic is. We're not Kim Jong-Gis over here that just put the right shape down right away. With experience, you can put the right shapes down. I've definitely hit some good shapes in this painting right off the bat. Not all of them, but I've hit some good shapes here. And the more experience you get, just by default, the more good shapes you are going to hit right away. But you should never expect that of yourself. Even when I'm doing client work, I give myself enough time to get the mistakes out and edit them to be good. You know what I mean?
Right.
I have time for like one or two more questions, Christian.
Cool. Let's see. Let me find a couple questions then. Let's see. Lulu asks, hello from France, Marco. What piece of art is the piece that you've spent the most time on?
Hi, Lulu. What piece of, oh, good question. Well, if my YouTube videos count, then it's that. My 10 Minutes to Better Painting series are the projects that take me the longest time from conceptualization to completion. Probably I spend like several months, like 2 months on each one of those, maybe 1 month at the least. In terms of painting, probably like some of the stuff I did for Disney's Nutcracker book, I would spend like 3 or 4 days on each one, which is not a terribly long time, but for me, that's about the longest I ever spend on a piece is like 3 or 4 days maybe. So yeah, some of those. I can't really think of one painting though that stands out, to be honest. I can't think of that. But my YouTube videos would be for sure the longest that I do. I have to do like my 10 Minutes to Better Painting series specifically because they have 2D animation. Some of them have 3D animation, a ton of graphics, motion graphics and editing. So those would be definitely the longest art pieces I produce. And those take me at least 30 days to do. But I do everything by myself, which is a bad habit of mine. I admire Proko, who has had the courage to hire a staff. And my wife's trying to get me to do that. But I can't imagine relinquishing the control I have over everything, which is not a good quality, I don't think, but there you go.
Adrian asks, hey, Mr. Bucci, what is your favorite food to eat and what is your favorite food to paint?
Oh, nice. Eating, this is going to be boring, but a pizza. Yeah. If you want to, if I'm going to die tomorrow and I had a meal, give me some pizza or maybe steak or just a hamburger. I don't know. I know it's the boring answer, but there you go. But I also like, if I'm not going to die tomorrow, I love trying different cuisines of different cultures as well. Like I'm a big traveling fan. And whenever I travel somewhere, I try and sample whatever they've got going there. But in terms of favorites, I'll go back with my comfort North American stuff. Oh, and I'm Italian, so pasta, gnocchi, but not potato gnocchi, ricotta gnocchi. It has to be. I don't like potato gnocchi. So that's another one. And my mom is amazing at making that. And what favorite food to paint? I haven't really painted lots of food, but anything that could be made tastier with some nice bright highlights. So that means greasy food, like hamburger buns. What was that?
I guess greasy. I was going to say fruit. Like shiny fruit.
Yeah, shiny fruit or like greasy hamburger buns or something.
Yeah.
All right, one more question, Christian, and then I'm sorry I got to go, but
all good.
I think we've been here for over 2 hours, which is awesome.
Yeah, 2 hours and 18 minutes.
Nice.
Well, Marco Bucci, is it possible to study just from and practice only for movies? What are your favorite movies to use for reference?
Is it possible? I'd say yes, but to add to your question, is it recommended? No. What's recommended, at least for me, recommended by me, is study from life, because that's where you're going to be forced to filter all the raw material through your own brain, and you really have to exercise your creativity when painting from life or studying from life. See here, this is great because it's a beautifully composed shot. The lighting is expert lighting. It's a professional cinematographer who did this. It's color corrected in a beautiful way, but those are all creative decisions made by someone else, and I'm learning from them here. But if all you do is study from movies, chances are those limitations will come through. I remember Craig Mullins saying this, that when people only study from photography, they start mimicking the limits of photography down to like a certain camera's exposure or the limitations of a film. And you don't want that in your work. I don't think you want your work to feel free of that. Yet if you only study from one thing, the limitations of that thing will come through. And that includes life too. So like if you only study from life, chances are you might not learn to be great at composition if you don't also study from film. So like everything needs to be in there for the best possible version of you as an artist. And movies are awesome because movies they come pre-filtered through professional compositions and editing and all that stuff. But yeah, you should also get out there in real life, study from nature, because that's where you have to apply your own creative ideas and really determine what you deem important or not. And again, that's already been worked out for me in this picture. So it's actually less creative for me to study from this picture than if I were outside studying, and you don't need to pick ambitious subject matter. Go out and like paint your shed in the backyard, paint a garbage can on the curb. You don't need to pick epic subject matter just to study something. I literally have paintings and paintings of garbage cans because they catch the light. I can paint them from my living room window. At least I could when I lived in Toronto, and I could see everyone's garbage cans on the street every Wednesday. But yeah, you don't need terribly ambitious subject matter. I would say this one is pretty ambitious. There's 4 heads, different values. This is on a medium high level of ambition. You don't need to go anything like this. Just go simple, but definitely study from multiple sources. Okay, one more, Christian. One more.
Okay, well, I guess if I were to add something to that is,
oh yeah, please.
If you look at great works of art, we keep bringing up John Singer Sargent, but I think he has extremely simple compositions, and
yeah,
his paintings are considered some of the most simple. So like, more complex does not necessarily ever mean better art.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Masato says, thanks again for your knowledge and wisdom. When doing light study, how much do you think about anatomy versus just shapes and contrast?
When I'm doing light study? Oh, like this?
Yeah.
Oh, like a study of light. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like lightweight study. Light study. Sorry, Christian. What was? How much do I think about what?
How much do you think about anatomy versus just shapes and contrast?
Okay, so I'm consciously only thinking about shapes and contrasts here today, but the anatomy is in the back of my head from years of study. So like that's never going away. Like I've done that homework and I continue to do that homework, and it's in my head. Like I know instinctively that there's a zygomatic process right there causing this plane to point up. I know that the mandible is right here, and I know how it's shaped. It's shaped like this. I just know that. I can't unknow it because I've studied it so long. So when I paint it, I'm not consciously thinking of it, yet it's there. So your question is, what am I thinking about? Well, it's shape and value. But really, if you actually looked, if I could like put a microphone in my brain in its entirety, it's anatomy too, even though I'm not consciously thinking of that. Anatomy is a great way to cross-reference your stuff, because like you put down a shape and you're like, oh, okay, that shape looks good, but cross-reference it with what you know about anatomy. Does it work? Like, does that mandible shape work? And if not, you probably have to edit your shape. And that's, again, where anatomy stuff, for example, comes in, because if you don't know it, you don't know that you don't know it, and therefore your stuff, it just won't work. You have to get lucky for it to work. And I want to put myself in a position where I don't rely on luck at all, where I, if you quizzed me on any plane of this head, I could tell you what's there. And I could tell you why that highlight's there, why that highlight's there, why that one's there, and why that one's there, and all of them. I know I'm accountable for everything. And it's a lofty goal. And I'm still, obviously, your studies never end, but like you should get to the point where you're never just thinking about one thing. Now, if you're a brand new student, obviously you're probably not going to be at that part of your studies yet. So you could try and isolate your stuff. And I did that often when I first started painting. I would try and just copy shapes. I didn't necessarily know about all the planes of the head yet. To me, I love it now, but to me, that was a drier subject back then, and I was less interested in it. So I didn't study it as much, and I would just try and copy shapes. And that got me to a certain place, but it became apparent that I was limited when I couldn't draw it from my head because I didn't know what the planes were. I had to see shapes in real life or a photograph in order to do it. And for me, that wasn't acceptable. I needed to be able to do this from my head. So that led me to studying planes of the head, which has since become a subject I've fallen in love with. And I have a whole 7-hour class on the planes of the head, which is also on Proko. Not on sale though, but on Proko. Anyway, that's a great question to, I think, maybe end our live stream with. I've kind of run out of time here, but what I'll do though is I'll finish the study and maybe I'll send it to you, Christian, or I'll post it at least on my own social media. You guys can see how it ended up. But I mean, these 3 guys are almost done. I'll probably do little tweaks to them, but they're coming along. This guy's a bit out of focus. I may put some more effort in there, but you know, these guys are coming along here.
Yeah.
Usually I'd go a bit faster than this, but talking always slows me down a little bit, right? So this is about it, but this is representative of about how fast I paint. It's like this. Yeah. Nothing too different. But yeah, I guess I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming. It means a lot that anyone who watches my videos, it really means a lot to me. I basically do this for a living now. I make videos and educational content. I'm also a freelance artist, but like more and more I've been focusing on, you know, education, and you guys make that possible for me. So I do my best to help you guys out with my videos, and to anyone who's watching my stuff, thank you from the bottom of my heart, really, that you take your time, that you spend your focus on some of my stuff. It means a lot to me. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for joining today. You know, you did an awesome job, and it was really fun hanging out. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, likewise, man. I really enjoyed chatting with you, Christian.
Yeah.
We'll do this again, and let me know if you're coming to Canada on your worldwide tour there.
Yeah, gonna do it, man. Can I sleep in your driveway?
Yeah, man. You can sleep in my studio. I've got a bed here.
Oh, nice. Cool. Wow. Fancy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are we cool to end the